Chapter 2394. Where did it come from? Did he summon it? Yanghua immediately drew his sword and retreated. He looked at the red demon in front of Toddy Belster, bewildered. Was it a familiar? The red demon's aura was intimidating, but it wasn't enough to deter him from attacking. This couldn't be Toddy's full strength. Heaven and earth, borrow the power of the universe. Yanghua shouted. The great sword in his hand was suddenly filled with the power of lightning. It slashed at the red demon. The red demon once again stretched out his hand and grabbed the great sword in his hand. But the next moment, it shrank back as if it had been electrocuted. The red demon was indeed afraid of lightning. Yanghua immediately increased his strength. Ripped, the red demon's shoulder was cut open and it fell to the ground. Oh no, he was too heavy-handed. Yanghua looked up at Toddy and was about to apologize. But Toddy Belster snapped her fingers. In an instant, 100 red demons appeared in front of him. Yanghua was stunned. There was only one thought in his mind. So many, he could easily take care of one. Maybe he could even take care of 10. But 100? Yanghua lost his confidence. Just then, Blitz and the others came out of the headquarters one after another. Blitz knew that Yanghua had been ordered to test Toddy's strength, but he couldn't say that now. Looking at Yanghua and Toddy's faces, it seemed they had gone too far. He planned to be the peacemaker. Mr. Toddy Yang, what are you doing? We're all on the same side. If you have any grudges, why don't you give me face and let it go? Blitz, you're here. Toddy Belster was full of confidence as she looked at the approaching Blitz. Your attitude makes me very uncomfortable. I accepted your employment, but that doesn't mean I have to be bullied by you. What does my strength have to do with you? Did I not finish one of the missions you gave me? Mr. Toddy, I think you misunderstood. No need to explain. Come. Toddy shook his head. Don't you want to know how strong I am? All of you, come at me together. Mr. Toddy, you're too arrogant. Who do you think you are? Mr. Toady, although we respect you, it doesn't mean we're afraid of you. Many people had come to watch the show, but hearing Toddy Belster's words, he couldn't help but be furious. All of them started cursing. Toddy Belster looked unperturbed, completely disregarding those people. With a snap of his fingers, the number of demons at the scene increased once again. There were dozens of giant eyeballs floating in the sky. There were still dozens of winged demons around, and the number of demons on the ground had increased tenfold. They were densely packed like an army. Everyone's expression changed. The ones who had been the loudest earlier were now all shrinking their heads and hiding. An army of demons. Everyone couldn't help but be moved. And look at Toddy Belster's casual movements. It was as if he had done something insignificant. Toddy Belster didn't think she could summon so many demons. At that time, the only thought in his mind was to teach everyone a lesson. And then he summoned so many demons before him. Tear this place down, Toddy Belster ordered. He really wanted to know if the psionic team would flip the table if he tore down their beautiful new headquarters. Wait, Mr. Toady, no. Yanghua and Blitz's expressions changed drastically. They didn't expect Toddy Belster to be so angry. At least, that was what they thought. But they couldn't stop Toddy Belster's demon army. Both of them were angry at Toddy Belster for being so unreasonable. Actually, they didn't understand Toddy's thoughts at all. He wanted the whole world to know how powerful he was. It had been too hard and frustrating to pretend in the past. Now, he didn't have to pretend anymore. The poor would lose themselves when they had money. Toddy Belster was in that situation now. Of course, he still had some rationality. He knew what he should and shouldn't do. For example, he could fall out with the psionic team. Falling out meant that he failed his mission. If he failed, he would face Chun Zhao's anger. No matter how arrogant Toddy was, he wouldn't think that he could challenge Chun Zhao. He could tear down their door, but he couldn't kill them. The stronger he acted, the more the psionic team would respect him. But if he killed them, they would have to answer to the others, no matter how much they wanted talents. So, he hadn't ordered the demon army to kill them yet. In fact, most demons did destruction as their main job. More than 30 people were lying on the ground. The headquarters was already in a mess. Just then, Vestana walked out. No demons attacked her. With a cold expression, she walked up to Toddy Belster step by step. Then she bowed deeply. Mr. Toddy, I'm sorry. Can you please put away these demons? Taking a deep breath, Toddy Belster waved his hand, and all the demons disappeared. I don't want the same thing to happen again. Whether it's to doubt me or to test me, I'll be worthy of every dollar you paid me. But I don't want anyone to challenge my bottom line. If it happens again, we won't be colleagues anymore. We'll be enemies. I understand. Vestana nodded. Vestana's attitude was very sincere, as if she deserved the destruction of the headquarters. Book a hotel for me. I'll stay there for a few days. Toddy Belster acted as if he didn't know that he'd done something terrible. Leader, he's too arrogant, Blitz said, his face pale. We need his power, Vestana said. The supernatural organization has Chun Zhao, Vestana said. The other members are all stronger than us. If we don't have a super expert like Toddy Belster, we'll always be on the defensive. We've paid a heavy price this time, but I don't think it's a bad thing. At least we know how strong he is. But his attitude shows that he doesn't care about us at all. He's as greedy as always. He just said that he stayed here for money, but he didn't do anything. From the beginning to the end, he attacked and destroyed the headquarters, but he didn't kill a single person. He knows that other than us, no one else can pay him that much money. Chapter 2395. Yang Guo and Blitz thought about it and realized that it was indeed true. What was there to be afraid of? Greed was the easiest thing to control. If it were other spiritualists, they might have been able to convince them by using some methods and using threats and promises. But could Toddy Belster use those tricks? It was fine if it was soft, but if it was hard to tell who would fix who. Today, Toddy Belster had shown them his true strength. They were all shocked. He was unreasonably strong. This reminded Vestana of Chun Zhao. He was also unreasonably strong. Who's stronger, him or Chun Zhao? Vestana was an outsider, so her question was the most direct. Hard to say. Yang shook his head. After all, Chun Zhao was a dragon-slaying warrior. His power wasn't as simple as it seemed. Even the strength that he had displayed was not to be underestimated. The strength that Toddy Belster displayed was also not to be underestimated. Also, from the way he'd summoned the demon army, he hadn't used his true power either. From the looks of it, it was really difficult to determine who was stronger and who was weaker. But one thing was for sure. Toddy Belster could compete with Chun Zhao. Because of this, Yang's psychological pressure was greatly reduced. He knew that Chun Zhao didn't have good intentions toward the psionic team, but his identity was awkward. Ever since he'd joined the team, he'd always stayed out of each other's way. He knew that if they fought head-on, it wouldn't benefit the team at all. But it was different now. The team wouldn't win for sure. At least they had a trump card. They weren't completely controlled by the supernatural organization. Yang Guo and Blitz suddenly felt that they hadn't gained nothing this time. After knowing Toddy Belster's power, the psionic team's morale would definitely be boosted. And Toddy Belster seemed angry. But wasn't that asking for benefits from them? If it could be solved with money, it wasn't a problem. What was a headquarters? The psionic team didn't have anything else but money. Maybe we can test the supernatural organization, Vestana said, her eyes sparkling. In that instant, Yang's scalp went numb. Vestana, you're crazy. I'm not. Don't you think it's time for us to counterattack? No, you still don't understand the difference between the psionic team and the supernatural organization. He's not our real comrade, but the supernatural organization is different. If Toddy Belster has the power to crush him, then pretend I didn't say anything. If Toddy Belster and Chun Zhao are equal in power, Toddy Belster won't fight to the death with Chun Zhao. If Toddy Belster is slightly weaker, he'll definitely retreat first because they have different responsibilities. Chun Zhao is the president, the leader, and Toddy Belster is a mercenary. Yes, Captain, Blitz said. In terms of high-end combat power, we can only protect ourselves. We can't ask Toddy Belster to fight to the death for us, and we can't completely control him. In terms of the normal members, even though we have 3 times the number of them, we still can't beat the supernatural organization in terms of strength. Yes. So, if there's a full-scale conflict, even if Chun Zhao loses, they won't be completely defeated because their low-level combatants will still be intact. On the other hand, the failure of our high-level combatants or the mid-level and low-level combatants will be a fatal blow to us. Then we're just going to hide like turtles? You're not going to do anything? Vestana said discontentedly. Vethana, haven't you been working on that plan? If your plan succeeds, you'll also become a high-end fighter, no weaker than Toddy Belster and Chen Zhao. That's when the real counterattack will come. Vestana thought for a moment, then nodded. She was indeed a little impatient. After all, the psionic team existed to replace the supernatural organization. But until now, she hadn't made any progress on this mission. The supernatural organization was still as firm as a rock, unshakable. The psionic team had been developing steadily, but they still couldn't pose a threat to the supernatural organization. This time, Vestana placed the most importance on conquering Bermuda, because this was a chance to prove the psionic team. It would prove that the psionic team could handle any supernatural incidents. Once the conquest of Bermuda succeeded, the supernatural organization's purpose of existence would be greatly reduced. By then, it wouldn't matter if they were stronger than the psionic team. Whatever the supernatural organization could solve, the psionic team could too. That was enough. And now, Toddy Belster would become an important factor in this plan. His strength would also become the most important combat power. In the end, under Yanghua and Blitz's persuasion, Vestana temporarily suppressed the idea of testing the supernatural organization. The most important thing now was indeed the conquest of Bermuda. As for dealing with the supernatural organization in the future, she could do it herself after her plan succeeded. Yang, make the arrangements. Book a hotel for Toddy Belster and the other members, Vestana said. Blitz, you're in charge of contacting the construction company to rebuild the headquarters. I hope the new headquarters won't be destroyed so easily. This time, all the members of the psionic team became homeless because of this conflict. The psionic team directly booked 3 floors of a hotel. The psionic team's office also needed a big place. The next day, Yanghua and Blitz went to find an office building. After all, the members' activities and offices needed a relatively large and private area. Toddy Belster, on the other hand, had a clear conscience and was having fun in the hotel. It was as if the culprit of all this wasn't him. When the other members saw Toddy Belster, they didn't dare mention what happened last night. They either called him Mr. or Master. No one dared to give him the cold shoulder. Mr. Toddy, I apologize for what happened last night. Yanghua found Toddy Belster again and took the initiative to apologize. His main task now was to appease Toddy Belster. It's fine. You and I both know what it means, don't you? You test me, I fight back. It's that simple. Just don't do it a second time. I don't like it when people test me. Toddy Belster was especially generous right now, as if he wasn't the one who forcefully demolished the headquarters last night. Chapter 2396. Yanghua felt a little strange. For some reason, Yanghua felt that Toddy Belster's reaction was completely different from what he had imagined. However, Toddy Belster's calm attitude at least made Yanghua feel more relaxed. However, he did not know where that sudden feeling came from. Yanghua shook his head and got rid of the distracting thoughts. The psionic team still had a lot of chores to take care of. He also had to take responsibility. As soon as he left the hotel, he saw 2 Taoist priests walking toward him. Yes, Taoist priests. Senior Brother Dao Air, Senior Brother Dao San. The 2 Taoist priests stopped and looked at Yanghua, then at the hotel. Dao Jia, why are you here? Senior Brother, can you call me by my name? In their generation, other than eldest Senior Brother Dao E, who sounded like a Taoist Dharma name, everyone else had Dharma names. The others' Dharma names were 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. All right, Guaer, why are you here? Call me by my full name. Xiaoyang. Forget it. Yanghua waved his hand with a dark expression. Senior Brother, you haven't told me why you are here. Grandmaster told us to come, Dao Air said. He said that you were facing a great calamity and wanted us to bring you back to Dragon Tiger Mountain to avoid it. Yanghua's expression changed when he heard his 2 senior brothers. However, he immediately thought of the impending Bermuda expedition. Could it be that his great tribulation would be in Bermuda? We were going to look for you at the psionic team's headquarters, but you came directly to our hotel. Wait, you didn't know we were coming? You're not here to pick us up? Senior Brother Dao Air, Senior Brother Dao San, I'm afraid I can't go back to Dragon Tiger Mountain with you. It's okay. We don't plan on asking you to come with us obediently. Grandmaster had already guessed that you wouldn't return to the mountains so obediently, so he specially allowed the two of us to break your legs and drag you back to the mountain gate if you say half a word of no. With that, a mace appeared in Dao Air's hand. This is a gift from Grandmaster, specially made to break your legs. How about it? Get a try. Senior Brother, this is a public place. Are you sure you want to fight here? Tonight at midnight. Let's meet at a place to decide who's better. If I lose, I'll willingly follow the orders of my two senior brothers. All right, we'll wait until tonight. However, we're not familiar with this place. Arrange a place for us, Dao Air said. Let's go to the hotel to rest first. Junior Brother, I heard that all the services in this hotel are free, right? Dao San asked. Not all of them are free. Yanghua glanced at the hotel. Some of the services still had to be charged, such as unsuitable for children. Senior, some of the services are more expensive. It's fine. This time, Grandmaster has specially approved a sum of funds for the activities. He returned to the hotel and helped his two senior brothers arrange a place to stay. Only then did he return to his own business. However, Yanghua also had a headache regarding the matter of his two senior brothers. Senior Brother Dao Air and Senior Brother Dao San were much stronger than him, not to mention the two of them working together. Furthermore, they had treasures specifically designed to deal with him. This made his head hurt even more. Find a place to hide? Although Los Angeles was huge with Dao Air and Dao San's cultivation, it was not difficult for them to find him. Grandmaster had probably thought about this as well. What should he do? Yanghua worried about this matter as he drove. Suddenly, Yanghua thought of an idea. It was a very bad idea. Yanghua picked up his phone and dialed Vestana's number. Vestana, do me a favor, a small one. Knock, knock, knock. Before Dao Air and Dao San could rest for a while, there was a knock on the door. Dao Air and Dao San were sitting in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, leaning back on the sofa to soak their feet. Dao Air narrowed his eyes slightly when he heard the knock on the door. The door is unlocked. Come in. Then, a dozen police officers came in, all pointing their guns at Dao Air and Dao San. We're the Los Angeles police. We have received a report that you are hiding and smuggling drugs. The leading police officer pointed his gun at the two Taoist priests. He was a little puzzled. Were these two oddly dressed old men really the vicious scoundrels and drug traffickers that he had reported? Dao Air and Dao San did not panic at all. What are you talking about? I don't understand. It's English, Dao Air said calmly. Put your hands up, put your hands up. Both sides were talking in a language that the other side did not understand. You have to come with us. Now put your hands out. Senior Brother, he took out his handcuffs to detain us, right? I think so, Dao Air said and stretched out his hands. Dao San also stretched out his hands. Captain, we didn't find any contraband. Don't worry about that. I received orders from the higher-ups to detain them for 24 hours. Are you sure we won't get into trouble? The other police officers seemed to have realized that the two old men did not look like drug traffickers. They looked more like old men who were here on vacation. They dealt with all kinds of criminals all year round. Therefore, sometimes they could find out whether a person was a criminal or not. Even if foreign drug traffickers wanted to find some special people to smuggle drugs, they would not find an old man who did not understand English at all. The old foreigners seemed less suspicious, but in fact, because the old could not keep up with the young, they were more likely to be exposed. The vast majority of people used young students to circulate and store their due. Students were smart, bold, and the least suspicious. Therefore, they suspected that the captain had other motives for bringing them here. At this moment, the captain also admitted that he was not here to search for contraband, but to receive another mission. Dao Air and Dao San left with the police obediently. Sure enough, it's just as Grandmaster guessed. Little Junior Brother won't go back with us obediently. This is probably his trick. Although Dao Air and Dao San had never been abroad, it did not mean that they were completely inexperienced. Moreover, Yang's handling of the matter was very crude. It was not difficult for them to guess that it was Yang was doing. Little junior brother has been out for a few years and has learned to be bad. So, when we bring him back to the sect this time, we must discipline him well. Yanghua heaved a sigh of relief when he saw his two senior brothers being sent into the police car from afar. He had finally avoided a disaster for the time being. If he really had a fight with the two of them, he would definitely be beaten up badly. However, he did not think that the crisis was over. He took the opportunity to go to their room to take a look. Their luggage should have been left in the hotel, and they probably did not bring their Dharma artifacts and Dharma treasures with them. He would first get his hands on their Dharma artifacts and Dharma treasures, so that he would not be too passive even if he had to face them in the future. Chapter 2397. This kid really has the same idea. He took advantage of our absence to take our artifacts. Don't worry about him. I've never been to a police station before, and it's a foreigner's police station. Dao Air and Dao San were handcuffed and sitting behind the police car. However, they didn't seem to be in a hurry at all. Instead, they were looking forward to it. The two policemen in the front seat were also muttering. "Captain, are these two old men important witnesses in a big case? You're thinking too much. They're just two ordinary old men." "Captain, you must be lying to me. Otherwise, they're the bosses of some gang. Look at their eyes, they look a little scary." The captain looked at the two old men in the rearview mirror and said, "You're just scaring yourself." After all, the captain was more experienced than his subordinates. Sometimes, the people detained in the police station might not be criminals or suspects. They might also be detained for some reason. Moreover, he had just checked the two old men's luggage. Their luggage was also very ordinary. There was nothing suspicious about it. Maybe they're wizards from the East. The policeman in the passenger seat began to guess their identities again. The captain rolled his eyes and ignored his subordinates. After arriving at the police station, Dao Air and Dao San were temporarily thrown into the corridor. In front of them and on their left and right were also arrested criminals. The two of them formed a sharp contrast with the criminals around them. They were like two lambs in a pack of wolves. "Hey, old man, what are you looking at?" At that moment, the man with a flat top and a nose ring, who was covered in all kinds of tattoos, shouted unhappily, "Young man, your fate is obscure. Dark clouds are looming over your head. You'll have bad luck in the near future. You must be careful and avoid water," Dao San said. "Third bro, can these foreigners understand you when you speak Mandarin to him?" "Oh, that's right." Dao San patted his head and suddenly came to a realization. He said that your luck has been bad recently. "It's very likely that something bad will happen because of water," said a man sitting on the left of Dao Air. "Bullshit." The flat-top man stood up and was about to attack. At that moment, a policewoman came over with a cup of coffee. The moment the flat-top man raised his arm, the coffee in the policewoman's hand flew away. The hot coffee was poured directly on the flat-top man. A layer of skin was almost peeled off from the heat. A few police officers came over and asked about the situation. They called for an ambulance and took the man away. Everyone looked at Dao Air and Dao San in a different light. "Sir, are you two prophets from the East?" "We are not prophets, but this old man is proficient in divination." Dao San stroked his mustache. "Can you help me take a look?" the man asked. Dao San stared at the man for a few seconds, looking him up and down. "The white light on your body is restrained, so you are a person of virtue. You must have done some good deeds, so you have the sign of Yin turning into Yang. Even if there is a bad thing, it can be turned into a good thing. However, your essence, qi, and spirit are declining, and your six senses are unclear. I'm afraid you haven't had a good rest in the past 3 years. However, you don't have the sign of a short life, so when you grow old, you will most likely be plagued by illness." Dao San paused and waved his hand. "Give me your palm. I'll read your palm." "Sir, please." Dao San took the man's hand and looked at his palm print. "Looking at your physiognomy, you have 2 marriages in this life, and the head and the tail are connected. You are suspected of having an extramarital affair. You have 2 daughters and a son. Your eldest daughter should be 9 years old this year, and you'll have your second daughter this year. 3 years later, you'll have your third child." The man's mouth was agape as he looked at Dao San in shock. In Dao San's notes, Apart from some future events that did not happen, the things that had already happened were completely accurate. He did have a daughter, and he was currently in 2 relationships. However, the first relationship had come to an end. They had already separated, and his current girlfriend was already pregnant, and it was confirmed that she was pregnant with a girl. In addition, at the beginning of the year, he did have a serious illness, and his current girlfriend was a nurse in the hospital. They got to know each other when he was hospitalized. "Sir, you are the great sage of the East. You are too great." Little Dao. Dowson stroked his mustache proudly. The man excitedly told the others around him. The others were also a little surprised or looked at him suspiciously. At this moment, a bearded punk shouted, "Hey, let him take a look at me." The man hesitated and looked at Dao San. "Sir, this bearded man wants you to take a look at him. Are you, come, let me take a look at him too." Dao San was also interested and did not refuse. "He wants you to put your hand over." Dowson took the bearded man's hand and began a comment. 3 righteous, 3 fair, 6 meritorious, 5 generals. "Sir, I don't understand what you're talking about." Dowson raised his head and looked at the face of the punk bearded man. "He has a vermilion seed mark, which is the mark of an official. In other words, from his face, he should be a police officer. Wait, could this guy be a spy?" Dao suddenly said. The expression of the man in charge of translating also changed slightly. Then he whispered into the ear of the punk bearded man. "They said that you seem to be a police officer." The punk bearded man's expression also changed drastically, and he suddenly retracted his hand. The blood on his forehead is condensing. "There will be a great disaster soon." Dowson glanced at the punk bearded man from the corner of his eye. "He said that you might be in big trouble soon. Something very serious will happen." At this moment, Dao San took out a talisman. "Let him hang it on his body. Don't take it off for the next 7 days." He said that you can't take it off for the next 7 days. The punk bearded man looked at the talisman hesitantly. "Money?" "No money." Dowson waved his hand and at the same time drew an obscure pattern in the air with his palm. He chanted, "The 3 sovereigns offer earth, the 5 emperors set love. The yellow sky offers respect, the 6 directions alone." What is he doing? The punk-bearded man was conflicted. Looking at Dao San's strange expression, he did not want to believe it. However, this old Asian man had actually seen through his identity. This made his mind start to run wild. Chapter 2398. "Katie." "Who's Katie?" a police officer shouted from the end of the corridor. The big punk man stood up and raised his hand. "That's me. It's your turn. Come in." Katie walked in and was brought to an interrogation room. Not long after, a detective came in. The detective locked the door from the inside. "Katie, why did you come to the police station directly?" The detective knew who he was, so he was very surprised that Katie had come to the police station. "Recently, there was a safe at the Mexican border that wanted us to transport it. I don't know what the goods are, but the client is very mysterious. I saw him once from afar, and that guy gave me a very uncomfortable feeling," Katie said. "The client's request is that when we transport the goods, we are not allowed to leave the motorcade, nor are we allowed to bring any communication devices. I can't inform you, so I can only drink while driving to attract the attention of the patrolling police. Then they brought me in. Now my car is detained in the parking lot of the police station." "Huh. I'll send someone to open the safe immediately. But to avoid arousing suspicion, you'll need to be detained for 3 days. At the same time, you'd better get a new driver's license. That safe can't be opened. It's a safe completely made of titanium alloy. Our boss was also curious about what we were transporting. If it's something good, he'll take it for himself. But he couldn't open it even after using a cutting machine and laser." "Is that safe very big?" "Of course. Do you think it's the kind that's kept in your cabinet? I drive a truck. Do you think if it's a small safe, it'll be transported in my big truck?" "All right, but you don't have to worry about how to open it. I'll find someone to open it." "Ronson, after we arrest Colin this time, I want to quit," Katie said. "Quit? Why?" "I don't want to continue being a villain and hooligan in the eyes of my family and friends. I want to be able to watch my son's school matches openly." "Listen, Katie, everything you're doing now will be enough to make your child proud in the future. He can shout to everyone that you're his hero, Ronson advised. In the future? When? When he goes to college, or marry a wife, and have children. Before he was born, I said that I wanted to quit, but you persuaded me to stay. Later, he could walk, and later, he went to primary school. I don't know when the end will come. Maybe, as you said, one day, what I did will make him feel honored. Maybe it will be at my funeral. Oh, will you come then? All right, let's not talk about this for the time being. After all, it's not easy to arrest Colin. Based on the information you provided me, speeding, drunk driving, and smoking Dama, the bail doesn't even need to be $10,000. I need more valuable information. I hope that it can keep him in prison until the end of time, or send him directly to the gallows as evidence. He's too careful. Most of the time, he doesn't even get involved in his business, Katie said. Only after we've delivered the goods will he invite us for a drink. As long as you're human, there will always be mistakes. I believe in your ability. Ronson patted Katie's shoulder. I have arranged a luxurious suite for you. Have a good time. Wait, is there anything else? Katie raised her hands. Can you unlock the handcuffs? All right. Ronson unlocked Katie's handcuffs. Suddenly, he noticed the amulet hanging around Katie's neck. What's this? An accessory? You have terrible taste. Katie slapped Ronson's hand, but accidentally broke the string of the amulet. Damn it, don't touch my belongings. Be careful, or I'll sue you. Katie picked up the amulet and hung it around his neck again. When Katie was sent to the cell, he found that there were already two people in the cell. They were Dao Air and Dao San, whom he had met in the corridor earlier. Katie nodded at them, chose a bed, and sat down. Because of the language barrier, he couldn't communicate with them. Senior brother, look at this fat guy. The blood energy on his body has thickened. It's like a sign of impending disaster. What's going on? Is my amulet useless? Doubter also looked at Katie. This fatty has a big head and big ears, and he has a loyal face. He should have received some good karma, and with the help of your protective talisman, he should have been able to resolve the blood chi tribulation. Why didn't he? Katie could feel the two old men's gazes lingering on him. He couldn't help but feel puzzled. However, he didn't understand Chinese, and the two old men didn't understand English. The two of them just stared at each other. And Aiwa. This was the only Chinese that Katie knew. However, even this simple word was unclear. Hello. The two old men were about the same. They only knew a few simple English words. Where are you from? China. Dao Air and Dao San understood. Dao Air nodded. China. China. Willie good. Senior brother, what's Willie good? It means good. I told you to learn more, but you only know how to play King of Kings. Look at us martial uncles. We can already take in a few foreign disciples. We can't even understand a few words of English. How can we keep up with the times? Aren't you not much better than me? Dao San mumbled. I've been in seclusion for 20 years and only came out recently. What about you? You only know how to idle around every day. How much good time has been wasted by you? How can you compare me to you? I told you to go into seclusion, but you didn't want to. You haven't improved in 20 years. How long have you been stuck in this realm? Senior brother, since we're here in the United States, there are people everywhere who understand English. This guy looks good. Why don't we follow the trend and take in a foreign disciple? Him? Dao looked at Katie. Katie panicked for no reason. She looked at Dao and Dao San hesitantly. What do you think? Can you do it? How do we communicate with him? Simple. Let our junior brother arrange one for us. As he spoke, Dao San took out a phone. Katie looked at the phone in Dao San's hand and couldn't help but be surprised. Where did this old man hide his phone? Didn't the police discover it earlier? This was a detention center. They would first be searched by the police, and then a second search would be conducted before they were locked up. Even if they hid their phone in their underwear, they wouldn't be able to hide it. Katie looked at the two old men even more curiously. Dao San ignored Katie's curious gaze and dialed Yang's number. Guor, do you miss me? Senior brother, why are you? Cut the crap and send me a translator. It's best if it's a spiritualist. If I don't see anyone in an hour, I'll go out and kill you. Divine Emperor of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 2399. Yangguo was a little guilty. Soon, a member of the psionic team was sent over. He knew Chinese. It was a Chinese American, but he was a pure banana person. He had immigrated to America in his father's generation. Hello, Master Dao Air, Master Dao San. I'm from Yonghua. My name is Scott Lee. Katie looked at the Asian newcomer. His hands were handcuffed, but he went straight to Dao Air and Dao San as soon as he came in. She was even more curious about the two old men. Just then, Scott Lee came to Katie. Hello, I'm their translator. Translator? Why? I don't know. I'm just following orders from my superiors. They asked me to help you communicate, Scott Lee said. Superiors? Did they send you to jail? It's only 24 hours, and there's no criminal record. It's just a mission for me. Just then, Dao Air and Dao San came to Katie. Katie was a little wary of these two old men who were talking mysteriously. Big guy, we're from the Dragon Tiger Mountain Heavenly Master Sect in China. My name is Dao Air. We think you have the talent to learn Taoism, which is Eastern magic. Are you willing to be our disciple? Scott Lee translated at the same time. Of course, he could only give a rough explanation. They're from China. They want you to be their disciple. Listen, I won't be their disciple. I didn't even go to university. Do you know why? When I was in high school, I forced 3 teachers to resign. Then I was also expelled. I'm sure they can't take my fists. Katie clenched her fists. Her bare arms were even bigger than Dao Air and Dao San's heads. I don't think they have anything to teach me. He refused. Scott Lee used a more direct method to answer 2 and 3. If you refuse, you might die. Of course, if you're lucky, you might be able to escape. But if you become our disciple, we'll help you. They said that if you refuse, they'll kill you, Scott Lee said. Did they really say that? Something like that, Scott Lee said irresponsibly. Katie shrugged and sat back on the bed. They don't have that ability. All right, if you guys still want to talk, call me at any time, Scott Lee said. Senior brother, what do we do now? I don't know. It's fine if he doesn't want it. This safe is way too hard. Lang Sun helplessly looked at the completely damaged chainsaw wheel in the hands of the 2 workers. One of the workers raised his visor and shook his head. No, it's impossible. It's impossible to open this safe with conventional physical means, unless you use corrosive chemicals or explosives. Ronson shook his head. He still didn't know what was inside. If chemical agents or explosives were used, it was very likely that the contents would be destroyed. His ultimate goal was to arrest Colin. Perhaps the contents of the safe would be a powerful piece of evidence. Therefore, it was impossible for him to use chemicals or explosives to open the safe. Think of another way. The sturdiness of this safe is completely unreasonable, the worker said. Even if it's made of titanium alloy, it shouldn't be this sturdy. Lang Sun reached out and stroked the huge safe in front of him. It was silvery white all over, and there was no trace of screws or bolts connecting it. The safe was completely integrated. Even the connection between the door and the safe was perfect. There was not a single gap. But because of this, Lang Sun was even more certain. The contents of the safe were very important. Although Lang Sun didn't know the exact value of the safe. Without a few $100,000, it was impossible to buy or make it. Something that was stored in such an expensive safe box must be very important. Damn, another wheel is broken. The worker looked at Lang Sun. If you can go laser cutter, you might be able to open this safe. Anyway, conventional means won't work. Laser cutter. Lang Sun immediately had an idea. Although there were no laser cutters in the police station, it didn't mean that he couldn't find one. Through layers of connections, Lang Sun finally got a laser cutter. At the same time, there were people operating the laser cutter. But the laser cutter was really too big. Just assembling the laser cutter would take a few hours. What is this? It tastes terrible. Dao San grumbled as he dropped his fork. Their dinner tonight was macaroni and cheese with a steak. Dao also lost his appetite after a few mouthfuls. When we get out, we must teach the youngest a lesson. How dare you lock us in here and ignore us? Dao and Dao San were both furious. Hey kid, come here, Dao called out to Scully. What's the matter, masters? Give Yonghua a call and tell him to prepare dinner for us. Scully looked at Dao and Dao San awkwardly. I don't have my phone. Really? Dao glanced at Scully nonchalantly. Scully suddenly shivered. He knew from Yonghua that these two were Yonghua's senior brothers, and they were ridiculously powerful spiritualists. And they were from Dragon Tiger Mountain's Sage Sect. In the spiritual world, Dragon Tiger Mountain's Sage Sect was definitely the richest of the rich. If Dragon Tiger Mountain Sage Sect was compared to a school, then it was the top school. Almost all spiritualists yearned to go there. Every spiritualist who came from there had the mark of Dragon Tiger Mountain Sage Sect. Almost all of them represented power and nobility. Moreover, Scully knew how powerful Yonghua was. How strong were the two people who could make Yonghua afraid? Okay, I'll call Yang now. Katie saw a phone suddenly appear in Scully's hand. What's wrong with these people? Why do they hide their phones? Also, it felt like they weren't here to go to jail. It was more like they were here on vacation. Soon, a few police officers arrived outside the cell. These police officers carried all kinds of takeaway and delivered it to their cells. Were these two old men rich? They didn't look like it. The two old men opened the takeaway and curled their lips in disdain. Forget it. We're in jail after all. We can't ask for too much, Dao Er said. Call him over to eat too. Scully looked at Katie. They said you should come over too. Me? I've already eaten. Are you full from that pile of dog shit? Bookmark for easier reading. Chapter 2400. Dao San and Dao Er weren't very satisfied with the new dinner. However, it was already very sumptuous for Katie. In the end, Katie sat in front of Dao Er and Dao San. She ate in big mouthfuls. Compared to the meticulously prepared food, the dinner in the detention center was indeed like dog shit. Who are they? Magicians from the East, Scott Lee said casually. Katie rolled his eyes. Even though Dao San had read his fortune before, he still felt that it might be a coincidence, or that Dao San had played some trick. What about you? I'm a translator, they called. I'm an amateur. Are they very rich? I don't know. What did they do to get in here? They were ordered to bring their junior back to the country. Their junior didn't want to, so they used their connections to temporarily lock them up here. Katie couldn't help but frown. He was a police officer after all. Hearing Scott Lee's words, he couldn't help but think that the police system was corrupt and framing two innocent old men. Katie was considering if he should find a chance to ask Ronson to let the two old men out. How much longer? Ronson asked. Not long. We can penetrate this safe as long as we assemble it. The melting point of titanium alloy isn't high. The cutting temperature of the laser far exceeds the melting point of titanium alloy, the workers said. All their work was actually to assemble the laser cutter. They had been busy since 3 in the afternoon until now. Almost all of their time was spent assembling. Fortunately, after a few hours and the hard work of a dozen workers, the assembly of the laser cutter was nearing completion. We can't penetrate it directly. I want to cut it from the side, Ronson said. They still didn't know what was hidden in the titanium alloy safe. However, if they pierced it directly from the front, it could easily destroy the things inside. Although it was possible to cut it from the side, the danger could be reduced. Okay, we can start cutting. The laser cutter was aimed at the side of the safe. Level 2 laser ready. The person in charge handed Ronson a pair of sunglasses to protect his eyes. Put this on, otherwise you might go blind. It's best to stand back. There might be scattering when we use the laser. A green laser shot out from a circular aperture. The green laser hit the outer wall of the safe and immediately bounced off. However, there were baffles beside the safes to prevent damage or injuries from the laser reflection. The laser also left a spot on the titanium alloy safe. The surrounding titanium alloy also showed signs of melting. Increase the output. Current power level is 278. Continue to increase the power. Just then, Ronson heard a puff. A black hole was left on the outer wall of the safe. Cut it open? Yes, cut it open. Ronson nodded. At this moment, the black hole on the safe suddenly emitted a large amount of gas. What's this smell? It's really choking. Cough, cough. The operator hadn't even taken a step when he suddenly fell to the ground. Then the gas began to spread outwards, and the surrounding workers collapsed one after another. Ronson's expression changed dramatically. Could it be that the safe contained poisonous gas? But at that moment, the gas seemed to be controlled again. It began to shrink crazily. Ronson rubbed his eyes and looked at the gas in shock. The gas was behaving very strangely. It was changing in an unimaginable way. Finally, the gas turned into a woman in classic clothes. The woman looked left and right. Then her gaze fell on Lang Sr. Where is this? This isn't the agreed place. The woman looked at Ronson and said, You're not my contact. Where's the delivery man? Where is he now? Stop, don't move. Put your hands on your head. Ronson pulled out his gun and pointed at the strange woman. What's that? A weapon? The woman looked at Ronson and asked, I'm a LAPD officer. I want you to put your hands on your head and get on the ground. Now, immediately. No one can order me, the woman said calmly. Bang! Ronson fired. The woman only tilted her shoulder slightly. Her shoulder was pierced by a bullet, but it didn't bleed. The wound was also quickly healing. This thing means nothing to me. It doesn't have any magic support. Ronson had never seen anything like this. A woman who was completely unafraid of guns and bullets. Maybe she wasn't human at all. All right, mortal, I want to know where the delivery man is. Ronson's expression changed. The delivery man she mentioned was definitely Katie. But Ronson wouldn't betray Katie. This time, Ronson aimed the gun at the woman's head. Bang, bang, bang. 3 shots in a row. The woman's head tilted back slightly, but her body didn't fall. The woman slowly straightened herself and looked at Ronson. The woman's strange and terrifying reaction sent chills down Ronson's spine. At that moment, the woman raised one hand and grabbed something in the air. A red spear appeared in her hand, but the woman thought about it. Seems like I'm overreacting. Then, the woman pulled back the red spear. Ronson's breathing became ragged. At first, he didn't feel it, but the more he faced this woman, the more he felt a suffocating pressure. But if you continue to refuse my request, I will kill every human that appears in my sight. The woman looked at the unconscious people on the ground. Let's start with them. Ronson panicked. The unconscious people around him were all normal people. They weren't even police officers. And because of his own needs, he brought them here. But now, he had to drag them down. Ronson felt guilty. At that moment, he was faced with a multiple-choice question. Sacrifice the lives of these normal people, or sacrifice Katie's life. Ronson had been using Katie, but the more he did so, the more he felt guilty towards Katie. I can sense that there are many humans here. It shouldn't be hard to kill them all, the woman said calmly. I will take you there. Ronson finally gave in. He still had some hope that this woman wouldn't harm Katie. Wise choice. Who exactly are you? Don't you already have the answer? I'm not human. What is your goal? Goal? Do you think I will tell you? You call me immortal, so you must think of yourself as a god. As a god, would you be afraid of telling a mortal your plan? This kind of provocation doesn't work on me. Chapter 24:01. Ronson brought the woman into the cell. Hey, Ronson, who's this woman? She's so pretty. Did she commit a crime too? Lock her in my room. I'll teach her a lesson. Ronson listened to the filthy words of the prisoners in the cells along the way. He was afraid that the woman behind him would go berserk and kill all the prisoners. However, the woman followed behind Ronson expressionlessly. Ronson heaved a long sigh of relief. Are you afraid that I'll kill them? They're just criminals. Most of them deserve to die. Their lives aren't up to you to decide. No, I have the ability and the right to punish them. You can't stop me. Ronson didn't say anything else and silently walked in front. However, he still tried to slow down. I don't like to waste time, the woman said. Suddenly, the woman stopped and took a few steps back. What are you doing? He's not here. Ronson's eyes flickered and he was a little panicked. However, the woman ignored Ronson's shouts and looked at Katie in the cell next to him. Katie, is the woman outside here to see you? Scully patted Katie. Katie looked at the woman outside and shook her head. I don't know her. At that moment, the woman outside smiled. You don't know me, but I know you, delivery man. Hearing this, Katie raised an eyebrow. Who are you? I'm the living thing you want to deliver. The woman said, You had to fulfill your vow and send me to my destination, but you broke your promise. Katie looked at Ronson and asked him what was going on with her eyes. Ronson's expression was ugly, and he kept shaking his head. At that moment, a red spear appeared in the woman's hand. Oh no! Sko Li's expression changed, and he formed a hand seal. Huh! In an instant, the iron bars in front of them twisted and locked onto the woman. Both Katie and Ronson were shocked by Sko Li's move. The woman was instantly wrapped up by the iron bars. Ronson didn't care what was going on, and his face was filled with joy. He was worried that something would happen to Katie. He didn't expect such a mysterious expert to be with him. But before he could rejoice, a giggle came from beside him. The iron bars around the woman were being forced open by her. Close it! Scott Li tried his best to control the fence. However, this woman was simply too strong. His control was completely incomparable to this woman's. Hiss! Finally, the woman tore off the iron bars covering her body. The red spear in the woman's hand suddenly slammed toward Scott Li. Suddenly, a long sword blocked the woman's red spear. Huh! Both Katie and Lang Sun looked surprised again. It was Dao Er who blocked the red spear with his sword. The woman's strength abruptly increased by a few notches. She lowered the long sword in her hand to dissipate the force. At the same time, she twisted the hilt of the sword in her hand, and the tip of the sword stabbed toward the woman at a tricky angle. The woman immediately took a few steps back. Dao Er also took a few steps back. What's going on with this woman? Dowson asked. I can't see through her life providence. That's because she's not human. Of course you can't tell, Dao Er said. Not human? What was that? Demon? Goblin? Or is it some kind of ghost? I can't tell. Dao Er shook his head. This is too strange. What is this woman? What? Mortal, you're being too rude, the woman said unhappily. I'm a god. God? No, you're not a god. Dao Er shook his head. He had followed Zhang Tianyi down the mountain many times, so he was very knowledgeable. However, he could not tell what this woman was for now. She was definitely not a god. Oomph. Golden flames suddenly erupted from the woman's body. Lang Sun, who was beside her, was forced back by the golden flames. The spear in the woman's hand burst into golden flames. Her target was Katie. Katie was so frightened that she stood rooted to the ground when she saw the golden flames. At that moment, Dao Er took out an 8 trigrams mirror and placed it in front of Katie. He shouted, "Reflect!" The golden flames were instantly reflected back to the woman. However, the woman was not afraid of his attack. A very good magical tool. You mortals can only rely on tricks like this to survive. Even if I don't use this artifact, I can still suppress you. As soon as Dao Er finished speaking, the 8 trigrams mirror in his hand suddenly disappeared. Senior brother, why did you put away the 8 trigrams mirror? I didn't, however, the woman did not give them any time to hesitate. She suddenly stabbed the red spear in her hand at Dao Er. Damn it! Dao San suddenly threw out dozens of talismans. The woman immediately changed her attack pattern and swung the red spear to knock the talismans away. However, the talismans were like nimble birds, cleverly avoiding the woman's spear and sticking to the woman's body one after another. Once the talismans were stuck to the woman's body, she would immediately lose her bodily functions. Soon, the woman's body was covered in talismans. Masters, you're the best. You've finally subdued this woman, Scott Li exclaimed in surprise. Katie's mouth was also wide open, her face filled with disbelief. Eastern magic casters. Are you really Eastern magic casters? Lang Sun heaved a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, these 2 old Chinamen were here. Otherwise, the consequences would have been unimaginable. However, Dao Er and Dao Sin did not look too good. This is only temporary. We'd better change places. What? Why? Dao Er and Dao San did not explain, because there was no need for them to. They had already discovered that the talismans on the woman's body were being ignited one by one. Soon, the woman would regain her freedom. Master, get rid of her while she can't move, Scott Li shouted anxiously. Dao Er shook his head. These talismans are called invulnerable talismans. They can subdue enemies, but not hurt them. To hurt someone, you have to break the talismans first. We've used so many talismans and only managed to trap her for a moment. She's not to be underestimated. Then what should we do? What should we do? Of course we should find an empty place to fight. What else do you think? Boom! At that moment, Dao San had already destroyed the wall opposite them, revealing a huge hole. Leave from here, is this considered a prison break? Lang Sun asked hesitantly. Katie rolled her eyes. Or should we stay here and wait for death? In the end, they left through the hole. A few minutes later, the talismans on the woman burned away, and she regained her freedom. Chapter 24:02. Hi, Chun, are you asleep? David called Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao rubbed his eyes and then pinched his forehead. Yes. If there's nothing else, I wish you a good night. What if there's something? David asked. If it's drinking, you can wait until tomorrow. I never wake you up in the middle of the night to drink. Okay, so you're in trouble? Or Kate? It's not me or Kate. It's LAPD, David said. Of course, it's my trouble too. Oh, I remember you're the deputy chief of LAPD now, right? I forgot to congratulate you. I'm not here to ask for a blessing. I'll give you a present too. I'm not asking for a present either. Then what do you want? Can you come to the police station? Did you accept some evil organization's blackmail and set up a trap in the police station? Then the moment I step in, you'll blow me up along with the police station? That's not funny at all. Okay, I'll go now. Chun Zhao knew that David wouldn't call him at this time if it wasn't something important. After arriving at the police station, Chun Zhao asked along the way and found David in the surveillance room. Hey, David, you're here alone. Are you watching something that's not suitable for children? David turned around and glanced at Chun Zhao. It's indeed inappropriate. Come take a look. So exciting. Intrigued, Chun Zhao sat beside David. He'd been looking forward to what kind of exciting scenes David would show him. In the end, David played a battle between spiritualists. Isn't there anything more exciting? I'm a bit disappointed. Chun Zhao pursed his lips. But where did you get the video? It happened in the detention center an hour ago, David said. No one else saw it, right? Chun Zhao asked, frowning. I rushed here immediately and forbade anyone else from coming in. As he spoke, David pressed the delete button and erased the recording completely. I don't know where that woman came from, but she kidnapped my subordinate, Ronson, and forced him to bring her into the detention center. Then, she attacked one of the cells that held 4 prisoners, but the people in that cell didn't seem to be ordinary people. Then, there was a conflict between the two sides, and the woman was controlled. Then, the 4 prisoners and Ronson escaped through the hole that was blasted open. Their current whereabouts are unknown. What do you want me to do? Capture all of them? Or secretly execute him? I don't care about the others, but Ronson is my subordinate. I must ensure his safety. Okay, which direction did they run to? I don't know. Aren't you a spiritualist? Wouldn't you know once you do a divination? Chun Zhao rolled his eyes. I'm not a prophet, nor do I know astrology. Anyway, this is what you're good at. You definitely have a way. Chun Zhao rubbed his forehead. Okay, I'll think of something. I'll go to the detention center and see if I can find any clues. David accompanied Chun Zhao to the detention center. All the prisoners had already been transferred. It was empty now. Chun Zhao arrived at the scene. The iron bars of the cell were completely deformed and broken. One of the spiritualists should have the ability to control metal. Isn't he like Magneto in the movies? Similar ability, but definitely not as strong. Because the surveillance footage was from the two sides of the corridor, Chun Zhao didn't see the battle in the cell. Right now, there was still a trace of magic in the cell. Just then, Chun Zhao saw a corner of yellow paper on the ground. Chun Zhao picked up the yellow paper and studied it carefully. It should be the talisman paper that the Chinese Taoists used. Chinese Taoists? Dragon Tiger Mountain? Give me a file on the people locked here. Take it. Chun Yibo, Lu Haisheng. Chun Zhao looked at their files. They were both from Yingtan City, Jiangxi Province, Huaxia. Dragon Tiger Mountain's Celestial Masters sect was in Jiangxi. Were these two from Dragon Tiger Mountain's Celestial Masters sect? How is it? Any clues? Yes. Do you need my help? Are you going to be my burden? Are you serious? David stomped his feet in anger. Okay, I'll go out and take a look. I'll contact you if I find anything. Chun Zhao walked out of the hole. It led to the underground parking lot. Unfortunately, there weren't any surveillance cameras here. Chen Zhao picked up his phone and called Yanghua. Yanghua, do you know Chuniba and Lu Haishan? What? Chen Zhao, what did you do to my two seniors? If I tell you that they're in my hands now, what will you do? What do you want? Yanghua asked angrily. Okay, I'm just kidding, but something really happened to your two seniors, Chen Zhao said. Not long ago, someone attacked LAPD. I have a friend who works there, so I was called over to help. But now, your two seniors are missing. Are you serious? You're not kidding? Okay, I'm kidding. Bye. As soon as Chen Zhao hung up, Yanghua called back immediately. Chen Zhao, say clearly. You don't believe me, right? What else do you want me to say? You're saying that my two senior brothers are missing? Do you have a way to find them? Where are you now? LAPD's underground parking lot. I'm coming now. Yanghua was very worried now. He called Dao 2 and Dao 3, but no one answered. He believed most of it. Moreover, he was the one who sent them to the police station. If something happened to them, he would feel guilty for the rest of his life. Yanghua hurried to the LAPD's underground parking lot. Chen Zhao was indeed here. Chen Zhao, what's going on? That's it. I told you everything I know on the phone. Our Dragon Tiger Mountain Celestial Masters sect has a special sensing spell. We can determine each other's location. Then what are you waiting for? Hurry and sense where your two seniors are, or which direction they're in. They're purposely hiding their location. I can't sense them. So you don't have any ideas? Not completely, but it's best to have something they've used before. That way, I can use the Reliance spell to find them. Will this work? Chen Zhao took out the corner of the small yellow talisman. Yes, there's Dao 3's aura on it. It's a bit weak, but it can still be used. Then use this to find them. Let's begin. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 2403. Dao Air, Dao San, Lang Sun, Katie, and Scott Lee were squeezed into a small car. Where are we going? Everyone looked at Dao Air and Dao San. We've only been in Los Angeles for less than 24 hours, and you're asking me where to go? Dao Air said angrily. Find an empty place with no one around. At this moment, Kathy, who was driving, saw the pursuers behind her. The woman was flying behind them, and she was getting closer and closer to them. Katie stepped on the accelerator and sped on the road at full speed. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't shake that woman off. That woman is catching up. Taishang Lao Jun, this is an urgent order. As fast as lightning. Dowson quickly made a hand seal and stuck the talisman on the steering wheel. Woo-dot suddenly, the car they were in let out a sound like a sports car. The entire car reached a speed of 300 kilometers per hour in an instant. I remember turning right into the coastal road. There's a coastline there. Go there, Scott Lee said. Kathy immediately turned the steering wheel, but the woman was still in hot pursuit. That woman's strength is really strong, and her speed is also very fast. This won't be easy, Dao Air said. He was a little apprehensive. The strength that woman had displayed was not to be underestimated. Not long after, a vast coastline appeared in front of everyone. What a beautiful coast. Fighting on such a beautiful beach is not a bad choice. Let's go down from here. Kuti didn't even step on the brakes. Instead, she drove the car straight onto the steep slope outside the highway. Finally, it crashed heavily into the sand. Everyone fell out of the car. Dao San and Dao Air were still fine. Although they were not at ease, they were not in a sorry state either. At this moment, the woman caught up with them and looked down at them. Aren't you going to continue running? Dao Air and Dao San looked at each other and made a hand seal at the same time. Boundless heaven and earth, borrow the power of the universe. Once it is drawn back, there will be no survival. At this moment, the two of them were suddenly covered in a layer of green and red gas. 2 tall and mighty Dharma idols emerged from the green and red mist. Shintu, Yulei, the others quickly backed away in fright, even though Dao San and Dao Air were on their side. However, the 2 Dharma idols in front of him were still very shocking. Shintu and Yulei were guardian spirits, and they also had deity positions in Taoism. It was widespread among the people, and there were some who faintly gathered spirits to become gods. Dao Air controlled the Yishun 2 Dharma idol to wield a pair of scissors in one hand and a hammer in the other. He waved his arms, and the power of wind and thunder was instantly boosted as he struck the woman. The woman's face darkened. She could also see that these 2 Dharma powers were not ordinary. Not daring to be careless, he immediately took out his red spear to face the enemy. Golden flames burst out from the tip of the red spear. Bang! The 2 forces collided, but no one gained the upper hand. At that moment, Yulei, who was controlled by Dao San, also attacked. Yulei held 2 swords in his hands and imbued them with the power of water and fire. He shot them at the woman at the same time. The woman's expression was cold as she blocked the attack with her golden flames again. The 3 of them exchanged a few moves, but it was a draw. However, Dao Air and Dao San's cultivation base and magic power were profound, so they had the upper hand. You mortals are still so shameless, used to bullying the few with numbers. How can a demon from the outer realm know that my Dao is natural? Even if we fight one-on-one, you might not necessarily win. Senior brother, I can't move. At that moment, Dao San's body seemed to have been hit by a spell. Not only could he not move his body, but the Yulei Dharma body he had summoned also disappeared. Yulei and Shun too were originally of the same origin, so they complemented each other. If there was only one of them, their strength would be greatly reduced. Oh no, it's the spirit of speech. This woman can use the spirit of speech. Dao Air's expression changed drastically. The woman couldn't help but reveal a proud expression. She then said with a hint of pride, "Spirit of words? This is not a low-level spirit of speech, it's a law." Dao Air and Dao San looked at each other. Dao Air shook his head. "With your strength, you can't control the laws. Although I don't know how you did it, you definitely can't control the laws." What was a law? To a spiritualist, the laws were like the laws of a normal person's society. Even his own grandmaster, who had an exceedingly high cultivation base, had not grasped the laws of nature. Although the woman in front of them was powerful, she was many times weaker than their grandmaster. Therefore, they did not believe that this woman could control the laws. You don't believe me? Then let me show you the true power of the laws. The woman snorted coldly. She looked at Dao Air and Dao San and shouted, "Dispel the spell." Instantly, the Ishun 2 Dharma body that Dao Air had summoned was cancelled. How is this possible? Dao Air and Dao San's expressions changed drastically again. The woman did not give them time to react. Golden flames surged towards them. The 2 hurriedly dodged, but at this moment, the woman said again, "Hit." Boom, boom. With 2 shocking explosions, Dao Air and Dao San fell to the ground in a sorry state. Their clothes, hair, eyebrows, and beards were all burnt to a crisp. Just as the 2 were about to cast healing spells, they heard the woman shout, "Healing seal." The 2's healing spells were immediately interrupted. This made the 2 of them waver. This woman might not have the strength to crush them. However, her law-like power left them with nowhere to use it. "Let's fight her!" The 2 of them roared in exasperation. Dao Air tore off his Taoist robe, revealing his skinny upper body. Dao San, on the other hand, struck a strange pose. The 2 of them prepared themselves. "Mana interruption," the woman shouted again. In an instant, Dao Air and Dao San spat out a mouthful of blood at the same time. They were prepared to fight with their lives on the line. They were already accumulating their qi, but they did not expect this woman to directly interrupt their qi and magic power. Unable to continue, they immediately suffered from the backlash. "What's the situation now, Scully?" Those 2 old Chinamen seemed to be losing. Scully's expression was extremely solemn. That woman was really too strong. No, to be more precise, it was strange. Her ability was too strange. She had forcefully turned the tide of defeat into victory. As for Dao Air and Dao San, although their cultivation and magic power were powerful, however, it was useless against that woman. We can't use qi-breaking spells. This woman's ability is too strange. If she really is using law, then what does her law contain? I can't tell. If we can't break her ability, we will most likely lose. This woman was indeed very strong, but she had not reached the point where she could crush Dao Air and Dao San. Just like before, Dao Air and Dao San could summon Yulei and Shun Tu to gain the upper hand. However, this woman's ability directly broke their spells. They could not figure out whether this woman was using law or not. Of course, even if it was, they would not be able to tell, because they had never seen an opponent who used law. Therefore, they cannot tell. Chapter 2404. Senior brother, what do we do now? Dao Air held his breath and looked at the troublesome woman in front of him. Looks like we have no choice but to use our trump card. Dao San was shocked when he heard Dao Air's words. The woman sensed the changes in Dao Air and Dao San. Dao Air suddenly took out a talisman. Talisman seal, the woman immediately ordered. However, Dao Air's lips curled into a smile. The talisman suddenly turned into a golden hollow ball. Go! The golden hollow ball tore through the air and grew larger after flying for a while. By the time it reached the woman, it had already become a giant ball with a diameter of more than 10 meters. The woman pointed her red spear at the giant ball, but it did not touch the body. The spear passed through the giant ball. Then a huge suction force came and sucked the woman into the giant ball. In the next instant, the giant ball shrank rapidly. Dao San pressed his palms against the ground. Golden red patterns spread out from Dao San's palms. These golden red patterns crawled up the hollow ball like living creatures. In the blink of an eye, they covered the entire outside of the hollow ball. Universal 8 Desolation, Tao of Nature, Suppress. Dao San shouted. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. In the next moment, his magic power paused again, and the hollow ball suddenly exploded. The woman regained her freedom. Her face was filled with rage. These two old Taoist priests were too much of a threat to her. Their endless methods brought her great danger every time. If she had not used the same trick again and sealed Dao San's magic power, he would not have been able to use his techniques. She might have really been suppressed by Dao San. The woman's eyes flashed with a fierce glint. At this moment, the woman's body began to twist, and the golden flames on her body became more intense. Senior brother, what is that woman doing? She's not doing anything good. The woman's body twisted and suddenly split into a clone. Upon closer inspection, it was not a clone, but another woman. Her figure, appearance, and temperament were completely different. However, this woman's aura was no weaker than the first woman's. Damn, it can't be. I can't even handle one, and now another. However, this was not the end result. The two women began to split again, and 2 became 4. The 4 women's strength was almost the same. Dao Air and Dao San looked at each other. Junior brother, bring out your trump card. All right, senior brother. The two of them shouted in unison. Boundless heaven and earth, borrow the power of Chien Kun. Run. Run. The 4 women, as well as Scott Lee and the others, were all stunned. Be it the enemies or the allies, no one could react in time. At this moment, Dao Air and Dao San raised a gust of wind. Scott Lee, Katie, and Ronson were swept up by the gale and swept towards the sea. The 4 women were angry and angry. Even when they were running away, they still had to make such a big scene. When they heard Dao Air and Dao San's shouts, they thought that they really had some trump card up their sleeves, but it turned out that they were running away. However, the 4 women did not intend to let them go and immediately chased after them. 5 elements escape art, water escape, 1,000-mile rapids. Dao Air shouted, and the 5 of them immediately dived into the sea. Aside from Scott Lee, Katie and Ronson were still in shock. They had never come into contact with supernatural incidents before. At this moment, inconceivable things kept happening. He wasn't wearing any equipment, but he could breathe freely in the sea. Moreover, he was moving faster than any marine vehicle. The 4 women were still following him closely above the sea. Although they did not enter the water, as long as they did not lose them, everything they had done before would be for naught. Dao Air looked up and exchanged a glance with Dao San. Dao San made a hand seal underwater. In an instant, 4 clones of Dao San suddenly appeared around them. These 4 clones all carried Dao San's aura. Under Dao San's command, These clones immediately scattered and fled in different directions. "Split up and chase after them," the first woman ordered. Yes, the four women immediately chased in four different directions. Meanwhile, at the bottom of the sea directly below them, Dao Air secretly poked his head out and glanced at the sea. "Phew, we've finally lost them. What kind of tricks does this woman have? She's too difficult to deal with. Her methods are strange and unpredictable. Let's not talk so much and float to the surface first. My water escape art can't last for too long." The group floated to the surface. At this moment, most of their magic power had already been used up. For cultivators like them, their essence, chi, and spirit were different from ordinary people. However, essence, chi, and spirit were all maintained by magic power. Once they used up too much of their magic power, their energy and stamina would also be greatly reduced. "Shaoli, is there any way to send us to the nearest land? We're out of energy," Dao San said with a pale face. The two of them had first fought and suffered heavy injuries. In addition, they had forcefully used magic power and spells after a few backlashes. At this moment, it was difficult for them to maintain their previous state. "Yes, please wait for a moment, masters. Watch me." While speaking, Scott Lee spread his arms and used his ability. Something in the sea seemed to be gathering towards them. Soon, everyone knew what was going on. Scott Lee used his ability to gather the trace amounts of metal elements in the sea and the bottom of the sea to form a small iron boat. However, at this moment, a sudden voice came from above them. "Is this the coffin you chose?" Everyone looked up and saw a figure appear out of thin air. It was that woman. Everyone's expression changed drastically. "Not bad at tricking everyone, but I also know this trick." The woman looked down at them from above. At this moment, Dao Air and Dao San's faces were withered. They were already exhausted and had no strength left to fight. Scott Lee was even weaker. He didn't have much strength to begin with. Just now, he'd used up most of his magic power to create this small iron boat, so he couldn't fight anymore. "Cough, cough. Looks like we're going to die here soon." "Very good. At least you've learned to give up." The woman held a red spear in her hand. Golden flames were brewing. Suddenly, the surface of the sea in the distance exploded. Following that, a black liquid shot out from the sea towards the woman. The woman immediately turned her spear around. The golden flames collided with the black liquid and canceled each other out. Everyone looked over and saw a small island rising from the surface of the sea. No, it wasn't a small island, but the head of some creature. The head was slowly rising from the surface of the sea. It was the head of a giant snake. However, this giant snake's head was different from normal snakes. It had a pair of fins on both sides of its head. Sea monster. That was everyone's first thought. Chapter 24:05. The snake monster opened its bloody mouth and spat out a jet of black venom. The woman immediately retaliated. The red spear in her hand emitted a blinding golden light. The black venom could not block the golden light at all and struck the snake's head. Whoosh! The snake's head was blasted to pieces by the golden light. The snake's neck sank into the sea without its head. Just when everyone thought that this was an interlude that had come and gone quickly, a figure suddenly appeared in front of them. An unprecedented giant wave was rising in front of them. Everyone's mouths were agape. Half the sky was already covered by the giant wave. The woman's expression changed drastically. Her body twisted and split into 16 clones. Each of the 16 women held a red spear and pointed it at the giant wave that was as tall as a skyscraper. 16 beams of red light shot into the center of the giant wave and exploded into 16 balls of fire. At the same time, the wave's momentum was stopped. The towering wave instantly collapsed like a skyscraper. But at that moment, a terrifying giant mouth opened up from the sea without any warning and bit at the 16 women from below. Oh no! Not all of the 16 women reacted in time. They were not real clones. Each of them had their own consciousness. Therefore, it was impossible for them to discover the attack from below at the same time. The giant mouth swallowed 8 women who could not dodge in time. Everyone watched as a terrifying beast rushed out of the sea and swallowed half of the enemies. This was an indescribable shock. "Return my sisters to me." The first woman was enraged. In an instant, 10, 20, 100, 1,000 women appeared in the sky. Everyone's eyes widened, and their faces were filled with shock. Dao Er and Dao San finally understood that the woman had not used her true strength during the battle. No, perhaps the first woman's strength was just that. But she could create clones, or rather, summon more companions who were equally powerful. I understand now. I finally understand. She's not using laws. She's using the spirit of speech, Dao Er exclaimed. Spirit of speech? How can the spirit of speech affect us directly? Perhaps one person's spirit of speech can't do it, but what about 100? 1,000? Dowson looked thoughtfully at the golden flames that filled the sky. At this moment, those women were like golden flowers blooming in the night sky. All the women were attacking the surface of the sea in a frenzy. Beams of golden light pierced through the seawater and attacked the two giant beasts that were swimming in the sea. Little Nine, run! That woman has gone mad. Amon and Little Nine were frantically dodging the attacks from above. However, the two of them were huge, so it was inevitable that they would take a few hits. Although those few blows wouldn't be able to kill them. However, they might not be able to hide forever. Therefore, they had already begun to beat the drums of retreat. Show yourself! Show yourself! Show yourself! All the women were shouting in unison. In an instant, the surface of the sea was torn apart. Before Amon and Little Nine could escape, they were directly exposed in front of these enraged women. Me? I swear in the name of the Valkyrie, you must die. The first woman coldly stared at Amon and Little Nine. Little Nine was still all right. Although it had 9 heads, it still had the body of a snake. But Amon was different. He was in the form of a whale. At this moment, he was flopping on the sea mud, unable to move at all. Valkyrie? The Valkyrie in Norse mythology? Scott Lee exclaimed in surprise. They are Valkyrie. In Norse mythology, the legend of Valkyrie had always existed as the maids of Odin. Of course, the purpose of their existence was not to serve Odin tea and water. They had a high status in Norse mythology. They selected loyal and brave warriors for Odin, and after those loyal and brave warriors died, they guided the unyielding souls into the Valhalla and became immortal spirits. These women are Valkyrie. Dodo 2 and Dodo 3 of course knew about the Valkyrie in mythology, but they didn't expect that they really existed in reality. And the woman from before called herself a god. Now that they thought about it, if they thought about it carefully, they were indeed gods. Kateri's expression was completely frozen. The goods she was transporting were Valkyrie, unclean creatures. Your final verdict is destruction. You have no right to judge my pet. A sudden voice came. Everyone looked over and saw a man walking over on the sea. As the man walked over, the sea that had been torn apart by the Valkyrie closed up again. The man clearly wasn't an ordinary person, but they felt that it was useless for anyone to come now. They were also impressed. Didn't he know the current situation? He actually dared to get involved in this mess. They're your pets? Obviously. Chen Zhao shrugged. Then you deserve to die too. The Valkyrie looked at him coldly. Chen Zhao scratched his ear. Be more direct and do something. You can't kill me with just words. The Valkyrie's red spear suddenly shot a golden flame at Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao lifted his finger. A pillar of water rose from the sea and charged toward the golden flame. Boom! The golden flame and seawater canceled each other out, creating a beautiful flower of water and fire. The golden flame was more intense and ferocious, but the seawater was endless. Looks like you chose the wrong battlefield, Chen Zhao said proudly. This is my territory. Really? The Valkyrie sneered and waved her hand lightly. Instantly, all the Valkyries in the sky pointed their weapons at Chen Zhao at the same time. Countless golden beams shot toward Chen Zhao. Dao 2 and Dao 3's expressions changed. He's dead. That guy is dead for sure. To them, even their grandmaster would have to run away with his tail between his legs, let alone Chen Zhao. Chun Zhao spread his arms and spread them upward. Countless water pillars rose from the sea and shot toward the golden beam. Everyone was dumbfounded. Beautiful, Katie murmured to herself. That miraculous scene made everyone's eyeballs almost pop out of their sockets. However, on the other hand, the Valkyries were infuriated. Chun Zhao's calmness was even more intolerable. Do you think this is your main battlefield? Isn't it obvious? Chun Zhao said proudly. Then let's change the battlefield, the Valkyrie said coldly. In an instant, everyone felt their vision blur, and then they appeared in a huge desert. Little Nine and Amon also landed on the sand. Chapter 2406. At first, they could still struggle in the mud, but now they couldn't. Especially Amon. He was in a miserable state. The Valkyrie looked down at Chun Zhao. How's the new battlefield I prepared for you? Everyone else's faces turned extremely ugly. They could all tell that Chun Zhao could fight against the Valkyrie with his geographical advantage on the sea. But now, the Valkyrie had completely taken away Chun Zhao's geographical advantage through her words. She turned the sea battlefield into another extreme, a desert with absolutely no water. The same thought popped up in everyone's mind. It's over. However, no one saw that darkness was spreading under the gravel under Chun Zhao's feet. This was mainly because it was nighttime. Everyone thought that Chun Zhao's ability was to control water. Can you die in peace now? Not enough, not enough. Chun Zhao shook his head. If you want me to die, you better be prepared for enough casualties. Nonsense. You won't have the chance to hurt one of my sisters. Whoosh! Suddenly, a stream of black liquid shot out from the sand. The black liquid turned into an extremely sharp blade and pierced through a Valkyrie's body. The Valkyrie spat out a mouthful of blood in pain and immediately tried to disintegrate her body. But the next moment, the dark lava turned into a cover and enveloped the Valkyrie. In the end, it shrank back into the sand. But soon, a ball of golden light exploded from the ground. The Valkyrie escaped from the sand. She looked extremely pathetic as she vomited out the dark lava. Looks like the old trick won't work. Chun Zhao pursed his lips. Chun Zhao's dark lava could devour dark creatures of similar elements. The dark lava had also developed to an unimaginable level through this method, but it couldn't devour enemies of other elements. For example, the Valkyrie's golden flames weren't holy light, but they were still holy and inviolable. The dark lava's element was the complete opposite of theirs. It couldn't be compatible with their power, nor could it devour them. You've been forced to fall. The leading Valkyrie was even more furious. Let the Heavenly Father's flames purify your body and soul. Countless golden beams exploded at the same time, shooting at Chun Zhao. The flames made Chun Zhao feel pain and unbearable. Dark lava immediately covered Chun Zhao's body, blocking the golden beam. But Chun Zhao retaliated at the same time. The dark magma continued to shoot into the sky. Both sides continued to bombard each other. Raise the altitude. The leading Valkyrie saw that the situation was bad. Although Chun Zhao was alone, he was too thick-skinned. 1,000 of their companions attacked at the same time, but they couldn't deal any fatal damage to him. On the other hand, Chun Zhao was constantly injuring and even killing their sisters. Therefore, she had to temporarily adjust her tactics and increase her altitude to avoid the invasion of the dark magma. You are very powerful, but the dark matter that flows out of the sewers is not enough for you to win. If you don't run, it should be enough. Chun Zhao looked at the Valkyries, who were raising their heights one by one. A hint of disappointment appeared on his face. Indeed, the dark magma could not shoot to such a high altitude. Furthermore, you're flying so high up, so it's hard for you to deal any more damage to me. Where does this dark matter originate from? What's it called? Dark magma. I named it. Oh no, don't tell them where your power comes from. Dowson wanted to stop her, but it was too late. The Valkyrie smiled proudly. Forbidden, dark magma. In an instant, the dark magma completely shrank. Chun Zhao was stunned. He wanted to activate the dark magma again, but he realized that he could not control it at all. Stupid human, you're finally going to pay the price for your stupidity. Fine, Chun Zhao sighed. So the legendary Valkyrie is also a despicable and treacherous coward. As long as we can defeat evil, any method is allowed. I admit that I'm evil, but speaking of victory, I'm still standing here perfectly fine. What right do you have to think that you've won? You've lost the advantage of the battlefield, and now you've lost your weapon. Do you think you can still win? Chun Zhao slowly raised a hand. At the same time, the gravel in front of him slowly gathered into a giant palm. The giant palm was filled with vast power. It was enormous and shocking. Kateri and Ronson were both ordinary people. Although they had experienced a series of encounters before, they were still ordinary people. They had experienced a series of things before, but when they saw the giant palm made of gravel, they were still shocked. To them, this was completely godlike power. Scott Lee was about the same. His level was not high either. His position in the psionic team was also at the bottom. Otherwise, Yangwu would not have sent him to translate for Dao Tu and Dao San. He had thought that the core members of the psionic team were already the top spiritualists in the spiritual world. But when he saw Chun Zhao, he realized that these so-called top spiritualists were so weak. They were completely different concepts. Force. Dao Tu and Dao San were shocked. They could also use force skillfully, but they could not do something as shocking as Chun Zhao. Everyone's force was different, and the force they borrowed was also different in strength. They did not understand where Chun Zhao had borrowed such a huge force. Moreover, he could withstand such a force and not be overwhelmed by it. The gigantic palm swept across the sky. Whoosh! Dozens of Valkyries were slapped by the giant palm. They would either be smashed into smithereens or sent flying. The Valkyries could only fly higher again. The human before them was definitely the most troublesome human they had ever met. It was unbelievably strong and unreasonable power. They had to use the spirit of speech again. Don't use gravel. In the blink of an eye, the gigantic palm collapsed and dispersed. Chun Zhao had expected this. The leading Valkyrie looked back at the messy formation of the sisters. Her expression was solemn and angry. This time, she was no longer as happy and smug as before when she had sealed one of Chun Zhao's abilities. Come, I'm all ears. You can say a few words of victory now. Do you really think you can win? I really think so. Chun Zhao nodded honestly. The leading Valkyrie did not say anything else. She raised her red spear and shouted, "Sisters, it's time to make our enemies tremble." Chapter 24:07. The sparse golden flames once again lit up the entire night sky. Valkyries appeared one after another. The number of Valkyries in the sky had increased to a hopeless number. This was the cautious choice the Valkyrie leader had to make. She didn't know what other trump cards the man before her had. So, she had to defeat and kill this enemy in the most cautious way. That was to mobilize the entire Valkyrie army. 10,000 Valkyries. The Valkyries were the strongest army under Odin. Their number would always remain at 10,000. When they suffered losses on the battlefield, they would select strong and brave women from among the human women, bestowing them with great power and bestowing them with a sacred mission. Both Dao Air and Dao San felt that this was a hopeless battle. Perhaps Chun Zhao still had a trump card. If he was facing the previous 1,000 Valkyries, he might have a chance of winning. But now, the number of Valkyries had increased by 10 times. This was a hopeless situation. Chun Zhao raised his head and looked at the Valkyrie leader. Sisters, victory belongs to us. Show this fallen one our power. This time, the Valkyries didn't attack Chun Zhao with golden flames. They charged at Chun Zhao one after the other. They stabbed at Chun Zhao with their red spears. Chun Zhao sneered. His figure suddenly flashed. Cloning. 32 clones appeared before the Valkyries. Seeing Chun Zhao's cloning, Dao Air and Dao San couldn't help but be shocked. This was a real cloning technique. No, it was even more advanced than the cloning techniques they knew in the past. With their eyesight, they could obviously tell that the 32 clones were all unbelievably powerful. In an instant, countless Valkyries and Chun Zhao's 32 clones were engaged in battle. It was a bloody battle, blood and flesh interweaved to create an extremely cruel scene. But it was also a merciless massacre. No matter how many ants there were, they were still ants. The Valkyrie leader frowned. She saw Chun Zhao and his clones brutally killing her sisters. She couldn't bear it, but she couldn't show it. Power stopped. Just then, Chun Zhao's real body suddenly felt weak. His power had completely turned into that of a normal person. This feeling of weakness made Chun Zhao very uncomfortable. Fortunately, the Valkyrie spirit of speech only worked on Chun Zhao's real body. It was ineffective against Chun Zhao's avatar, because those clones weren't real clones. Instead, they were part of Chun Zhao's consciousness. They could also be seen as individuals. At the same time, hundreds of Valkyries fell from the sky. Chun Zhao's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't attacked them. So how did they fall? Understand now. Daoer could not help but yell when he saw this. Dao San's reaction was a little slow. He immediately shouted, "I understand too. Your Excellency, although the Valkyrie's words conceal your abilities, they have to bear the same amount of pressure. The more abilities and powers you have sealed, the more pressure they have to bear," Dao Ji reminded him. Chun Zhao's eyes lit up. "I see." Chun Zhao couldn't help but smile. Giant spirit divinization. Chun Zhao was immediately covered in a layer of golden light. Instantly, Chun Zhao's power increased again. The original feeling of weakness was gone. Power seal. Seeing this, the Valkyrie leader had to use the same trick. However, in the giant spirit divinization, Chun Zhao's power was more than 10 times stronger than before. Instantly, countless Valkyries fell from the sky. The golden flames on their bodies also became extremely weak. "Disintegrate the clones," the Valkyrie leader ordered again. However, this time, it didn't work on Chun Zhao or the other avatars. "Ow! Why is it ineffective? Are those not clones?" The Valkyrie leader's expression was very ugly. Chun Zhao suddenly turned into a body of energy and shot into the sky. All the Valkyries along the way were instantly pierced through by Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao's real body was unstoppable. Meanwhile, Chun Zhao's avatar didn't stop killing. Everyone was stunned by this scene. Valkyries kept falling from the sky. At the same time, there was a rain of blood. "Sisters, come back." Just then, all the Valkyries in the sky disappeared. Only the Valkyrie leader was left. The Valkyrie leader glared at Chun Zhao with hatred. "Human, you're very strong, but you haven't won yet." "Really?" Chun Zhao shrugged. He didn't need to explain too much. Facts spoke louder than words. Weren't the corpses all over the ground enough to prove the truth? The Valkyrie leader looked at her sisters who had been brutally murdered. Sorrow welled up in her heart. "Sisters, come back." Just then, the corpses started turning into specks of starlight. Even the blood they'd spilled on the ground started turning into starlight. The scene was like a river of stars. It was very relaxing. "Is it the last attack?" Chun Zhao looked at the Valkyrie leader warily. But just then, the Valkyrie leader turned into a beam of light and shot into the night sky. Chun Zhao looked at the beam of light that disappeared into the night sky. He was still on guard. Was it a powerful move that descended from the sky? But after waiting for a long time, the Valkyrie still didn't use her full power. Chun Zhao was a bit shocked. It couldn't have run away, right? The Valkyrie who'd been so fearless just a moment ago couldn't have run away so suddenly, right? After waiting for another minute, Chun Zhao was finally sure. Fuck, she really ran away. Chun Zhao let out a long breath. He withdrew his avatar and walked toward the crowd. Everyone was on guard against Chun Zhao's approach. They knew that being on guard was useless against Chun Zhao, but their instinctive fear couldn't be avoided. "Who's Ronson?" Sir, what's wrong?" Ronson was scared. He believed that he definitely didn't know the man before him. He also didn't understand why this strange and terrifying man would mention his name. Had he or one of his relatives been caught by him before? Ronson had encountered this in the past too. After catching a suspect, the suspect's family and friends would come to him for revenge. Just as Ronson's thoughts were running wild, Chun Zhao said, Your deputy chief asked me to come and save you. Deputy chief? You mean David? Ronson's jaw dropped. His face was filled with disbelief. The newly transferred deputy chief could actually find such a terrifying guy? Did the deputy chief have some powerful background? It really seemed possible. After all, David was only in his early 30s. But he was already the deputy chief of LAPD. It was extremely rare to see a deputy chief at this age in America. Chapter 24:08. Just then, Chen Zhao's phone rang. Chen Zhao picked it up. It was Yang Guo. Chen Zhao, where are you? I walked 100 kilometers out to sea and didn't see you. Did I go in the wrong direction? Or did something happen? Previously, Chen Zhao and Yang Guo had traveled together to search for Dao Air, Dao San, and the others. However, Yang Guo couldn't keep up with Chen Zhao's speed. Through Amon and Lil Nine, Chen Zhao had sensed the danger from Dao Air and Dao San. That was why Chen Zhao left first, while Yang Guo found a small boat. However, when Yang Guo arrived at the original battlefield, he realized that the nearby sea was calm. It was as if nothing had happened. Chen Zhao and the others were nowhere to be seen. Yang Guo had no choice but to call Chen Zhao after searching for nothing. We're in the desert now. We don't know our exact location yet. Chen Zhao was helpless too. He didn't know where Ms. Wu had taken him either. However, this shouldn't be a California desert. Judging from the grains of sand on the ground, it should be an even older desert. There were so many deserts in the world. Actually, the sand in each desert was different. Depending on the age of desertification, the amount of rainfall, and the geological structure, the degree of desertification would be different. Chen Zhao wasn't an expert in this area, but he knew the basics. Where are my two seniors? How are they now? Chen Zhao glanced at Dao Air and Dao San. They seem to be injured. It looks pretty serious. Hearing this, Yang Guo panicked. Are their lives in danger? I don't think so, Chen Zhao said. Yang Guo finally heaved a sigh of relief. What about Scott Lee? How is he? Who's Scott Lee? I sent him to translate for my two seniors, Yang Guo said. Oh, is he from your psionic team? Chen Zhao narrowed his eyes. He scanned the crowd and finally locked onto Scott Lee. Ronson had already confirmed his identity. Katie didn't look like a translator. When Chen Zhao first saw Scott Lee, he thought that he was also from China. He thought that Dao Air and Dao San had brought him out and was a disciple of Dragon Tiger Mountain's celestial sect. Hearing Yang Guo's words, Chen Zhao realized that he was from the psionic team. That Scott Lee is dead, Chen Zhao said. Hearing that, Yang Guo felt like he was struck by lightning. He was speechless. He's dead. That's right. He died a horrible death. He was directly vaporized. Not even his bones were left. Dao Air, Dao San, and the others were not far from him. Hearing Chen Zhao's conversation, Scott Lee mumbled something about not even leaving a corpse behind. It wasn't anything, but when Chen Zhao said that, he was clearly looking at him. This scared Lee very much. At this moment, he was racking his brains. How had he offended Chen Zhao? But after thinking for a long time, he couldn't remember knowing Chen Zhao. After hanging up, Chen Zhao approached Scott Lee. You're Scott Lee, right? Yes. I am, sir. What's the matter? You're from the psionic team? I am. I'm the president of the supernatural organization. Scott Lee's expression instantly became very interesting. Although he had only joined the psionic team for a short period of time, this didn't stop him from knowing that the psionic team's nemesis was the supernatural organization. Usually, all he heard was how the psionic team would surpass the supernatural organization. Originally, Scott Lee had thought that the psionic team was so strong. It would only take a few minutes for them to surpass the supernatural organization. But after hearing Chen Zhao's self-introduction, Scott Lee couldn't help but feel fear. Was the psionic team going to become enemies with such a terrifying existence? Wasn't that too reckless? The so-called experts in the psionic team would probably be slapped to death by Chen Zhao. Thinking of this, Scott Lee couldn't help but shiver. Slap. Chen Zhao slapped Scott Lee's head. I'm talking to you. How dare you daydream? I'm sorry. Scott Lee immediately lowered his head and apologized. He couldn't offend him. Where do you live? I'll send you home. Chen Zhao grinned at Scott Lee. Scott Lee could tell that Chen Zhao was threatening him. If you don't want to go home, then you can stay with the supernatural organization for a while. How about that? Scott Lee lowered his head and thought for a while. Finally, he nodded. Scott Lee knew that Chen Zhao was subtly detaining him. Then Chen Zhao looked at Dao 2 and Dao 3. You're old Zhang's disciples? Old Zhang. Zhang Tianyi, Chen Zhao said. We're the Celestial Master's disciples. We're young with seniors. Chen Zhao looked at their ages. At their age, people might even believe that they were Yanggua's grandfathers. But considering Zhang Tianyi's age, it was reasonable for his disciples to have such a large age gap. Chen Zhao called Zhang Tianyi again. Hey, old Zhang, did you miss me? An angry voice came from the other end. You dog, you had to call me now. You caused me to be killed alone. Chen Zhao didn't put on speakerphone, but Zhang Tianyi's voice was too ear-piercing. Dao 2 and Dao 3 had to listen even if they wanted to. They'd never heard Zhang Tianyi speak in such a tone. In the past, they'd always been steady and gentle. In the end, the first thing Chen Zhao said was vulgarities. Their jaws dropped. I did another good thing today. Good thing? You? Yeah. I've been accumulating merit recently. If you kill less, that'll be the greatest merit. Do you know what it means to kill for a noble cause? I kill to save people. Fuck, that's fucking killing for a noble cause. It means sacrificing oneself to achieve great things. What fucking killing to save people? If there's nothing else, don't disturb my advancement match. Not only did I kill people today, but I also saved a few people. None of my business. 2 old men were among the people I saved, but they should be dying soon. I see that they're in so much pain that I can't bear to see them continue to be tortured, so I plan to send them on their way. Give me a plan. Dao 2 and Dao 3 were dumbfounded. What did he mean by dying soon? We didn't. The 2 wanted to explain, but the next moment, their mouths were covered by dark lava. Dao 2, Dao 3? Zhang Tianyi heard a voice beside him. What happened to them? Something like that. They encountered demons and were seriously injured. They can't be saved. Chapter 2409. Can I say one last thing to them? No, they can't speak, see, or hear now, Chen Zhao said. But I have a life-saving medicine. It's very effective and can bring them back to life in a matter of minutes. It's just that the formula is a bit expensive. Then help me find a good place to bury them, Zhang Tianyi said angrily. He knew that Chen Zhao was trying to extort him again. Sure, Chen Zhao didn't give Zhang Tianyi a way out. I think the place where they're buried is good. With the protection of their ancestors, their descendants will definitely become rich in the future. Oh, the refreshing, cleansing pill I promised you last time is already on the way, but I forgot whether to send it to Shuntong or Yuantong. Why don't you pay attention? Chen Zhao pursed his lips. Oh, your grand disciple, surnamed Yang, seems to be heading this way. I think that with his close relationship with his senior brother, he'll definitely be devastated if he finds out that the 2 of them died in a foreign land. He might even be in so much pain that he wants to die and want to commit suicide. You win. I have some purple heart bamboo seeds. I'll use them to exchange for my grand disciple's life. How about that? What are you saying? Your grand disciple is my grand disciple. Would I purposely harm their lives? Yes, I was wrong. Please save my grand disciple, okay? But what's that purple heart bamboo? It's not anything good. When it grows up, the bamboo joints will automatically brew bamboo heart dew. It can make people not age, and there won't be any side effects. Chen Zhao's eyes brightened. It can make people not age? Is it really that magical? But it can only make people not age. It can't make them become young again, Zhang Tianyi said. Zhang Tianyi said, for example, if a 60-year-old man drank the bamboo heart dew, he would not become 50 years old. Instead, his appearance would forever remain that of a 60-year-old. What about bodily functions? Actually, this bamboo heart dew is a liquid that slows down the aging of the human body, but it's mostly external. The internal functions can also slow down aging to a certain extent, but the effect isn't very good. This is also good stuff. You're really willing to give it to me? Of course, no matter how good things are, they're still external objects. All right, I'll reluctantly save your grand disciple. After hanging up the call with Zhang Tianyi, Chun Zhao released Dao Air and Dao San. Sir, this is not a good idea. What's wrong with that? Do you think I'm a volunteer? Chun Zhao interrupted Dao 2 and Dao 3. If you don't think I'm right, then call Zhang Tianyi personally and tell him that you're tired of living. Tell him not to trade with me. Dao Air and Dao Sen looked at each other and sighed heavily. Then he contacted West and asked him to use his phone to locate them. Soon, Chun Zhao found out their current location. They were now in the desert near the city of San Luis Rio Colorado in Mexico. It was less than 600 kilometers away from Los Angeles. This was within Chun Zhao's expectations. After all, if it was too far, there would definitely be a time difference. When he was teleported to this desert, he had already observed the starry sky. There wasn't much difference. That was why he guessed that they hadn't moved too far. However, Chun Zhao had to send him on and Little Nine back to the sea first. The two of them were still rolling in the sand. Although they wouldn't get dehydrated, at their current speed, they would never be able to return to the sea without help. They were still in San Luis Rio, Colorado, but the southern side of the desert was connected to the sea. Along the way, it was all desert. There were no towns or inhabited areas. Chun Zhao looked at everyone. Do you want to go back to Los Angeles yourself? Or do you want me to send you? Just as Scott Lee was about to speak, Chun Zhao interrupted him. I'm not asking you. Come with me. We're in the country illegally, right? If we leave the Mexican border, we won't be able to explain how we got in, Ronson said helplessly. And we might be arrested as spies. Fine, it doesn't matter if you come with us. Chun Zhao's original goal for this trip was to accept David's request to find and protect Ronson. And him, Ronson said, pointing at Katie. Don't be fooled by his looks. He's actually our undercover agent. Fine. Chun Zhao looked at Dao Air and Dao San. What about you two? If it's convenient, you can take us with you too. They were from the spiritual world, but they'd entered Mexico for no reason. It wasn't easy to leave the regular route. You guys go carry him on. Little Nine, you keep him on occupied. They couldn't agree with the names Chun Zhao had given his pets. For example, Little Nine. Looking at the 100-meter-long Hydra, they couldn't tell that it had such a cute name. At first, they were still curious about how Chun Zhao would move these two huge things. But soon they understood. Chun Zhao lifted Amon and Little Nine, who was wrapped around Amon's stomach. They flew into the air and then flew at high speed. Little Nine's weight had already reached 2,000 tons, and Amon's weight was 10 times that of Little Nine. Chun Zhao was actually able to carry these two enormous creatures and fly at an astonishing speed. In less than 10 minutes, they could already see the horizon. Chun Zhao threw Amon's huge body into the sea, raising huge waves. On the other hand, Dao Air, Dao San, Ronson, Katie, and Scott Lee were hung in the air by a bunch of grapes. Fortunately, Chun Zhao didn't plan on carrying them back to Los Angeles. In the end, he let them enjoy a free luxury sea trip. When they arrived in Los Angeles, it was already dawn. Watch your mouths. Chun Zhao looked at Katie and Ronson. Both of them nodded silently. They both knew that Chun Zhao was different from other gangsters. They weren't afraid of gangsters, but they really didn't have the courage to face Chun Zhao. As for Dao Air and Dao San, Chun Zhao couldn't threaten them either. After all, they had Zhang Tianyi, a god, behind them. Let's go, Chun Zhao said, glancing at Scott Lee. Although Scott Lee was extremely unwilling, he still followed behind Chun Zhao. I'll give you a chance to tell your family that you're safe. For a long time in the future, you won't have a chance to contact the outside world again. In the end, Scott Lee called his family and obediently followed Chun Zhao to the headquarters of the supernatural organization. Chapter 2410. It was Scott Lee's first time at the supernatural organization's headquarters. Perhaps it was because of his first impression. In his imagination, the supernatural organization's headquarters must be very mysterious. There was a hint of coldness in every corner. Scott Lee did not know that the coldness he felt was because of the dense dark clouds above the headquarters. That was the oppressive feeling that the domain gave him. Seeing that Chun Zhao had brought Scott Lee in, West was stunned. He was usually in charge of the supernatural organization's affairs, including monitoring the psionic team. Therefore, he roughly knew the names, appearances, and backgrounds of the members of the psionic team. Thus, he knew that Scott Lee was from the psionic team the moment he saw him. Seiji's first thought was whether the other psionic ability teams were also using spies to deal with them, just like they were. Had Chen Zhao been tricked by this guy? But after Chen Zhao explained a little, West understood. Scott Lee was from the psionic team and had seen Chen Zhao's power. If Scott Lee returned to the psionic team and told them about it, perhaps the psionic team would give up on fighting the supernatural organization. But it was more likely that they would speed up their actions. By then, it wouldn't be so easy for the supernatural organization to deal with the psionic team. That was why Chen Zhao had detained Scott Lee out of caution. I'll leave him to you. Chen Zhao pushed Scott Lee to West's side. West glanced at Scott Lee, who was trembling in fear. Kid, how should I address you? Scott Lee. Lee, why did you choose the psionic team? Why not the supernatural organization? Do you have an open recruitment? West was speechless. The supernatural organization was an elite organization. Chen Zhao and West had personally gone to inspect and appraise almost every member. Or it was the member's family or someone they could trust. Tell me about the internal affairs of the psionic team. West would not let go of any chance to learn about the psionic team. At this moment, Lin Beyonce walked over angrily. Scott Lee took a few steps back when he saw the murderous look on Lin Beyonce's face. Newbie, am I scary? Are you going to hide from me? Lin Beyonce yelled at Scott Lee with a dark face. Beyonce, how was it? Did you pass the first level? Just a little bit more, and I would have passed. Lin Beyonce gritted her teeth. Although Lindsay Beyonce was half forced to join the supernatural organization. However, after a period of getting along, she had gradually accepted her identity. Of course, with her bad temper, she still refused to give in. He didn't have a good expression when he saw everyone. However, she had provoked a lot of people and was taught a lesson by many. Therefore, she knew that most of the people in the association were stronger than her. There were many people who had taught her a lesson. Basically, the top few people in the association had all taught her a lesson. 2 days ago, after the end of the Battle of Holy Glory, Gaia and the others returned. Lin Beyonce also mocked the 10 people who went to battle. They said that they went to participate in the Battle of Holy Glory, but in the end, only one of them obtained the title of Holy Glory's top 100. It was a complete disgrace. Then, she was taught a harsh lesson. Lin Beyonce belonged to the new generation that both Chen Zhao and West thought highly of. Of course, her personality still needed to be polished. The way to do that was to use the iron fists of her friend's love. Just then, an extremely cold aura surged from Scott Lee's back. Scott Lee shivered. Looking back, he realized that it was a spirit. However, a layer of white frost formed on the path the spirit body took. Even though she didn't get close and only passed by him, Scott Lee still felt a chill from the depths of his soul. Seeing Pamela approach, Lin Beyonce stopped talking and retreated. On her 3rd day in the association, she had the honor of witnessing how terrifying Pamela was. The scariest people in the association weren't Gaia, Noah, or Hallies. It was Lady Pamela before her. She was an extremely terrifying banshee. Other than Chen Zhao, no one in the association dared to say that they could defeat Pamela. Of course, Pamela wasn't alone. She also had an army of banshees. They were one of the hidden trump cards of the supernatural organization. However, even without Chen Zhao, the supernatural organization had enough power to protect themselves. If she offended Gaia and the others, she would be bettered in for a few days at most. Even if she talked back to Chen Zhao, he would at most beat her up. But if she offended Pamela, she might turn into a block of ice and be displayed in front of the headquarters for a few days. It was because she had experienced such things. That was why Lin Beyonce kept her distance from Pamela. Okay, time for breakfast. What's this morning? Although Lindsay Beyonce hated the world, the air, and the people and the things that happened were not pleasing to her eyes. However, the 3 meals here were the only things that satisfied her. The ghost chef's cooking was really good. What made her even more addicted were the ingredients here. Everything couldn't be found outside. It It was impossible to describe how precious these ingredients were. Many of the food here belonged to the legendary level, especially since Lin Beyonce was an enhancer. She could feel the benefits of the food even more clearly. Not to mention her magic power, her body was at least 5 times stronger than before she joined the supernatural organization. Scott Lee stayed there for a day, even though his freedom was not restricted. He wasn't restricted, but he could clearly feel a pair of eyes watching him. If he dared to step out of the headquarters, he might be beheaded in the next moment. In the evening, Scott Lee saw the people of the supernatural organization building a bonfire with all kinds of ingredients and seasonings. It seemed like they were going to have a bonfire party. At this moment, Gatcalo was pushing a flatbed cart with a very large piece of meat on it. They couldn't tell what it was, but it was at least 2,000 kilograms. It was a complete piece of meat. Farspin, you're in charge of cooking it. Everyone was looking forward to it too, because it was from Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao didn't tell them what it was, but they were sure that it was a magical beast he'd hunted. From the looks of this piece of meat, it should be a piece of meat from its thigh, but this piece of meat already weighed 2 tons. Then, how big was this magical beast body? But everyone was already used to it. They were already used to seeing what kind of magical beast Chun Zhao hunted. Chapter 24:11. The piece of meat Chun Zhao had given him was a piece of Red Eagle's thigh. It wasn't even 1,000th of the Red Eagle's thigh. Red Eagle's body was too huge. When it spread its wings, it could cover the entire city. His body was as big as a mountain. Back then, Chun Zhao couldn't do anything about Red Eagle. He couldn't finish such a huge body by himself. That was why he gave it to his own people. If everyone worked together, they might be able to eat Red Eagle into a skeleton in 100 years. Of course, that was if the number of members in the association increased by several times. With just a few dozen people, they wouldn't be able to finish such a huge Red Eagle in 1,000 years. But Chun Zhao didn't mind. Anyway, that thing wouldn't rot in his space ring. If he couldn't finish it, then so be it. Chun Zhao was still troubled by the mutant octopus. The scale of the disaster was still expanding. A few coastal cities on the west coast were all in trouble. Chun Zhao had hoped that Isaac could provide him with clues about Homesius. But Isaac couldn't find anyone either. Just as Chun Zhao was having a headache, someone he didn't expect called him. "Hey Chun, it's Gavich." "Huh? Gavich, what's up? I heard you're in trouble. You're not calling to mock me, are you? Or you're the culprit? Oh, your main business is producing chemical materials. Did you release something you shouldn't have and cause this disaster?" "Chun, I'm a legal businessman." Lila Gavich chuckled. "I was going to give you some information, but since you don't need it, forget it." "Huh, I'm joking. Where are you now? I'll go find you. I brewed a batch of good wine recently." It was Chun Zhao's first time visiting Lila Gavich's house. Lila Gavich was the largest chemical producer in America. He was much richer than Chun Zhao. Although Chun Zhao was rich, he'd only made it in the past 2 years. But Lila Gavich was different. He'd accumulated it for decades. Chun Zhao didn't even dare to imagine how rich he was. In America, one had to have an extremely deep background to play with a few industries. Energy, medicine, and chemical industries were all controlled by traditional families. It was almost impossible for outsiders to intervene, even if it was to develop a new product. This new product would either be sold to those tycoons or all sorts of dirty water. Lila Gavich lived in Beverly Hills. However, it was not in the coastal area. Instead, it was halfway up a mountain. Looking down from here, one could see the entire horizon. Lila Gavich's villa was different from Chun Zhao's modern and technological feeling. His manor was filled with the stench of a nobleman. Chun Zhao had been to many manors of rich people. Lila Gavich's villa might not be the biggest or the most luxurious, but every little thing here was filled with a sense of exquisiteness and taste. This reminded him of the British drama Downton Abbey that Feilai had forced him to watch. Chun Zhao didn't really look at it, but everything here looked like an old-fashioned English noble's manor in British dramas. Everything here was simple but not old, deep but not gloomy. Here, there was also the bright and beautiful sunlight, as well as the boundless spring scenery. Lila Gevich was wearing a formal suit. He had a table and a chair on the huge lawn, leisurely drinking afternoon tea. When Chun Zhao walked up to Lila Gevich, the servant had already come over to add a chair. "You know how to enjoy yourself." "Rich people do," Lila Gevich said. The servant went up to add some refreshments for Chun Zhao. "How did you know I was in trouble?" Chun Zhao asked curiously. "I've been paying attention to the supernatural organization," Lila Gevich said with a smile. Lila Gevich said with a smile, "And the mutant octopus attacks in recent days are not a secret. Although the news media has been banned, it is not difficult for most rich people to find out about it." "What news did you get?" "Two pieces of information." Lila Gevich placed the two pieces of information before Chun Zhao. "One is about Homesius, and the other is about the new news agency's research institute." "You know the progress of my investigation?" Chun Zhao asked, confused. "You investigated Homesius through an intermediary company. You want to know what's going on with the house called Homesius. Do you think the intermediary company can keep the secret? Then what's the situation with the research institute? They're the culprits of a mutant octopus attack. You actually found out about this." "Coincidentally, I sell chemical products, and this Shinsha Research Institute is one of my company's clients." "Then what about Homesius? What's his situation?" "He's the person in charge of the research institute, but we haven't found out who the sponsor is yet. All the money that goes into the research institute is through an anonymous overseas account. We can't find out. Then we only need the research institute's address. We don't need Homesius information, right?" All the equipment and researchers of the Shinsha Research Institute disappeared overnight. Now, the Shinsha Research Institute still owes my company tens of millions of dollars in payments. "You're saying that they've already run away?" "Yes." Chun Zhao couldn't help but look gloomy. With a headache, he asked, "Are the leads broken? There's another direction we can investigate." Lila Gevich's gaze landed on Homesius information in Chun Zhao's hands. "Homesius? He should have disappeared too, right?" "Yes, indeed. Homesius disappeared too, but his family moved frequently in the past few years. They're living on a small ranch in the suburbs of Los Angeles now. You're not asking me to capture Homesius' family, right? There's a rule in the spiritual world that we shouldn't harm family members." This wasn't a rule, but it was also the bottom line. Chun Zhao didn't want to touch this bottom line. "I didn't say I'm going to touch Homesius' family, but my people are already secretly monitoring them. That should be fine, right?" Chun Zhao nodded. That was fine. Chun Zhao wasn't that pedantic. Even the police often monitored the families of suspects in order to catch them. "I'll also send people to monitor Homesius' family. Of course, aside from the 10 million, I have nothing to do with this." Chapter 24:12. For Lila Gevich, perhaps $10 million really wasn't much. It was the same for Chun Zhao. Perhaps he could spend more than that once. But if it was in the business world, they would fight for every cent. Two teams of lawyers might argue for a few months just for 0.1% of profit. This was very common in the business world. So Lila Gevich couldn't be as indifferent as he seemed. Chun Zhao was the same. For example, the movies he, Steven, and Rasfa invested in. The three of them could give each other millions or even tens of millions of dollars in gifts. But they couldn't be sure of the share of the box office, even if it was just a cent. That was the bottom line of business investment. A cent less today might mean a zero tomorrow. Of course, the reason why Lila Gevich let Chun Zhao deal with him was mainly because he wanted to do Chun Zhao a favor. He wanted to do Chun Zhao a favor. Or rather, he wanted to return the favor. The two of them had been through life and death together. After all, he'd fallen into hell back then. Chun Zhao had killed his way into hell. From then on, he understood how terrifying Chun Zhao was. He also knew that having an ally and friend like Chun Zhao was something to be grateful for. Of course, the $10 million debt was another matter. If he had the chance, he wouldn't give up on the debt from the New Society Research Institute. Just because he wanted to do Chun Zhao a favor didn't mean he would give up on the 10 million. Should we go to the Research Institute? Maybe we can find some clues. Is it far from here? Not really. Actually, I've never been there before. Saying that, Lila Gavich turned to the servant beside him. Call Merlin here. Merlin? Who is it? Oh, one of my lawyers, Lila Gavich said. Because the New Society Research Institute can't pay up and they're suspected of maliciously defaulting, they're planning to use the Research Institute to pay off the debt. She's also responsible for this. Chun Zhao had thought that Merlin was a beautiful lawyer like Alex. But when Merlin came, Chun Zhao was greatly disappointed. Merlin was already more than 50 years old. Although he was dressed simply and professionally, Merlin was already in his 50s. However, he didn't have the feeling Chun Zhao had expected. Merlin didn't know Chun Zhao, so he only greeted Lila Gavich. Boss, well, how's the situation at the Xinsha Research Institute? At present, because the court can't find the legal person, it ruled that the Xinsha Research Institute has seriously breached the contract and maliciously defaulted on the payment. The court has agreed to our request. Now the Xinsha Research Institute and the surrounding land are ours. You've done well. Take us to the Xinsha Research Institute. I want to see my new territory. Chun Zhao and Lila Gavich sat in the back seat, chatting casually. Although Merlin was driving, she could be said to be observant and attentive. She had been listening to their conversation. She was curious about who Chun Zhao was. Have you had any use for your Hydra recently? Asked Lila Gavich. What? Are you going to sea? Yeah, I'm taking a few foreign partners out to play, so I'm going to borrow your Hydra. You don't have a yacht? Lila Gavich was much richer than Chun Zhao. Therefore, Chun Zhao didn't believe that Lila Gavich didn't have a yacht. Yes, I have 2 yachts, but they're both more than 20 years old. Most of the equipment can't keep up with the times. It's fine if it's a normal trip, but I'm using it to entertain a few super rich people. The 2 yachts aren't very presentable. Oh, then send someone to my house to get them, Chun Zhao said. Chun Zhao didn't have any plans to go out to sea, so he generously lent the Hydra to Lila Gavich. Merlin's heart jumped. This Asian man was also rich. She'd boarded Lila Gavich's yacht before. Just luxurious wasn't enough to describe the 2 super yachts. But even those extravagant super yachts weren't enough. Then how luxurious would the yacht that Lila Gavich borrowed from Chun Zhao be? Do you have any large investments recently? Lila Gavich asked again. Huh? Why do you ask that? Your friends have recently been selling some second and third tier assets to cash out, and they have also made large loans with the bank. This situation is either they're in urgent need of money, or there's a financial shock. If it is a financial shock, it is impossible for me to not know about it, so I can only guess that they are in urgent need of money and are making some kind of investment. The so-called second-tier assets were those whose annual profits didn't exceed 1 to 2% of the investment. Basically, after deducting the interest from the debt, the second-tier assets would at most not lose money. It was far from profit. Nevertheless, even the second-tier assets were still very popular in the financial market. For example, the big shots on Wall Street didn't lack money. What they lacked was how to turn their cash into assets that wouldn't depreciate. On the other hand, the third-tier assets were those that were below the profit line. They might lose a little this year and make a little profit next year. They could barely break even and survive. If the third-tier assets could be sold at a break-even price, the second-tier assets could be sold at a premium of more than 20%. The bank would classify and evaluate the assets. For example, the first-tier assets were considered high-quality assets. The second-tier assets were assets with more than 5% profit. These assets were hard to come by. There were also super and excellent assets. It was normal for them to be sold at a premium of 200 or 300%. For example, Chun Zhao's Marina restaurant was an excellent asset. The bank's valuation was only 80 million, but it had considerable profit. Even if someone offered 5 times that, there would still be people fighting for it. As for Chun Zhao's Mountain Brewery and brand, they were priceless treasures. Perhaps Mountain Brewery's market valuation couldn't even enter the world's top 500, but its profit could enter the world's top 100. Those people are all your friends. At present, the total amount of funds they have raised should be more than 3 billion USD, and you have a lot of cash on hand. Based on my estimation, the cash on hand should be more than 1. 5 billion US dollars. So, I have to suspect that their intention to borrow cash and loans is to have some kind of investment project. Hearing their conversation, Merlin felt his heart skip a beat. Wasn't this man too rich? What did 5 billion in cash mean? Even the richest man in the world didn't have 5 billion in cash. It would even be difficult for them to take out 100 million on the spot. But this man actually had 5 billion US dollars. Chapter 24:13. There's a project. If you have spare cash, you can use a few $100 million and put in your account for a month or two. Your and your friend's cash flow should be close to 5 billion, right? Isn't it enough? It's not enough, Chun Zhao said. It's just that the plate is too big. No amount of money is enough. Chun Zhao wasn't going to build a normal coastal island. He was going to build a super resort like Hawaii. The amount of money he needed in the early stage was gone. This didn't even include the subsequent investment. So, this project wasn't something normal people could afford. What project? I can't tell you yet, Chun Zhao said. Lila Gavich thought about it. The project Chun Zhao was talking about didn't even have a shadow yet. To him, even if the project disappeared, he would only lose 1 or 2 months of interest. It wasn't a big deal. Okay, I'll prepare it later. What's the maximum investment? Prepare as much as you have. It depends on your appetite. The more you invest, the more shares you'll get. How big is this project? I don't think there'll be such a big project in the world in the next 10 years, Chun Zhao said. Mr. Chun, how much money do I need to be qualified? Merlin asked while driving. Sorry, I can't qualify no matter how much money you have, Chun Zhao said, smiling. When Chun Zhao was distributing the cake, he also looked at the people. Acquaintances depended on whether they had enough capital, connections, and influence. For example, a celebrity like Steven was welcomed by 99% of the investment projects in the world. As for those he wasn't familiar with, Chun Zhao wouldn't let them in no matter how much money they had. He didn't even have enough for his own family. Why should he give it to outsiders? Merlin smiled and shook her head. She obviously knew what Chun Zhao meant. However, she was only asking a probing question. She didn't think that Chun Zhao would let a stranger in. Soon, they arrived at the New Press Research Institute. Chun Zhao looked at the building before him. It was around 7 or 8 stories tall. There was a large empty space around it for greenery. This building costs 2 or 3 million, right? This building can barely make up for it, Lila Gavich said disapprovingly. Let's go in and take a look inside. Boss, Mr. Chun, this building was originally used for some experimental research. We found some chemical materials in there earlier. I haven't sent people in to disinfect and clean it up. If we go in now, there's a certain risk. I'm a chemical producer. Why would I be afraid of those chemicals? Lila Gavich said with a smile. Those chemicals don't know the boss. It's okay. I brought a doctor with me. He knows better than I do what's dangerous. Doctor? Merlin was stunned at first, but he quickly reacted. Mr. Chun is a doctor? I'm a doctor, Chun Zhao answered. Merlin did not expect Chun Zhao to be a doctor. Of course, Chun Zhao was an illegal doctor too. Even though Chun Zhao was a professor, he didn't have the qualifications to practice medicine. If I can't get the money back, although this building can barely cover the interest, I'll still need to invest a lot of money to repair and use the building. In the end, I won't be able to earn anything. Lila Gavich was a very smart businessman. He was different from normal businessmen. Normal businessmen thought that if they bought something for $5 and sold it for $10, they would earn $5. But Lila Gavich considered more complicated things, such as the time cost, investment profits, interest, currency depreciation, and so on. Even a lawyer like Merlin felt emotional. Just a moment ago, the two had been discussing investments of hundreds of millions or even billions of dollars. Now, they had to carefully calculate the investment of $1 or $2 million. But this was the basic quality of a successful businessman. A businessman who could not be calculative was not a qualified businessman. Chun Zhao, Lila Gavich, and Merlin walked around the building. They did not find anything valuable. It's a little strange, Merlin suddenly said. What's strange? The amount of materials in the building is wrong. What's wrong? Didn't the original person in charge move them away? What's strange about that? Neither Chun Zhao nor Lila Gavik understood what Merlin meant. First of all, they moved in a hurry. Also, they moved secretly, so there can't be too big of a commotion, Merlin said. Merlin said, based on the amount of chemical raw materials our company sold to them, the cost of taking these raw materials away is very high. We just walked around the building, and there are a few individual laboratories that still have a lot of raw materials that have not been opened. There are also a lot of raw materials that have not been opened in the warehouse. Many of these raw materials are not cheap, but the remaining raw materials do not match the total amount. Think about it. If it were you, under what circumstances would you choose to transport some raw materials away? And under what circumstances would you choose to transport some raw materials away? This, Chun Zhao and Lila Gavik glanced at each other. What does this mean? It means that there's a second warehouse here. The New Society Research Institute's building is very clear, so the second warehouse might not be above ground, Merlin said. Merlin said, although I don't know why they want to take the chemical materials from all the suspicious points, they do have a second warehouse. Chun Zhao and Lila Gavik had to admit that Merlin's thinking was very sharp. At least, they hadn't thought about this possibility. Oh, the button in the elevator seemed to indicate an underground parking lot, Chun Zhao said. But there's already an open-air parking lot here. I don't think they'd make another one, right? Let's go take a look. We'll know soon. The three entered the elevator again and pressed the button for floor 1. When the elevator door opened, Chun Zhao, Lila Gavik, and Merlin were all shocked. It wasn't a hidden warehouse below. Instead, it was an underground laboratory that was even larger than the buildings above ground. I didn't expect such a large underground space to be hidden here. Boss, since this is a hidden laboratory, it means that some secret experiments have been done here. We might be in danger if we go in while wearing isolation suits. It's fine. For Chun, nothing can trouble him, Lila Gavik said confidently. Lila Gavik said confidently, if you're scared, you can wait for us up there. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.